And I'm the National Officer of Globethics.net India. Globethics.net is an international forum committed to ethics in higher education. Thank you for taking the time to join us today as well. As I had mentioned yesterday, this is a conferencing and publication project with the main theme towards sustainable knowledge and ethical societies, the contribution of higher education institutions. This is the second in the series and all about shaping the knowledge societies through higher education. It's great that we are here since 2 days for exploring the knowledge societies globally and also locally. This is a joint venture of Cebu Technological University, Cebu, Philippines, Christ deemed to be University, Delhi, NCR, India, and Globethics.net India. Now I'm going to share the program for the day. There are 3 talks, and the first talk will be delivered by Professor Dr. Pushpanadam. He is a faculty at the MS University of Baroda, Gujarat. The second talk will be delivered by Dr. Tony Sam George, who is the Dean, School of Social Sciences, Christ University, Bangalore Central Campus. The third talk will be given by an expert on the topic Research Ethics in Higher Education, and Dr. Luis Miguel, who hails from Portugal. He's an adjunct professor at the Center for Comparative Studies of the University of Lisbon, Portugal. There will be 4 paper presentations by Dr. Professor Dennis Macon from the Philippines, a joint paper by Sandra Posoda, Diana and Natalie from Colombia, and Professor Neo Gilbert and Dr. Ridhima. They will be the reactors for today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. This global conference will be recorded and a video of it will be available, and it will be shared on request for you to watch and share. Only the speakers can be seen, but you as a participant can use the chat box and it will be seen by everyone and recorded as part of the meeting. You are encouraged to introduce yourself, to share your own ideas, and to ask questions. We will ask our speakers to address as many of the questions that you put in the chat box as possible. Having said that, I hand over the session to Ms. Susan.
Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us here today. I am Susan Aka, and I am the National Officer for Globethics.net in Ghana. Yesterday, we had an insightful session with our speakers, for which we are grateful, and we are looking forward to even so much more today. I deem it an honor to introduce the first speaker of the day in the person of Professor Dr. Karanam Pushpanadam. Professor Pushpanadam is the head and professor, Department of Educational Administration, and teaches in the Faculty of Education and Psychology at the Maharaja Siyajirao University of Baroda for the last 25 years in the area of education and educational management. He's also conducting research and community outreach programs, guiding doctoral research scholars, providing consultancy services in total quality management in education, teacher development and educational leadership, and so much more. He is academic consultant to British Council on Global Teacher Accreditation Program in India, and also the visiting professor at Assumption University and Burapha University in Thailand. He's here with us today to deliver his lecture on the future of learning in higher education global trends. Let us give him a virtual round of applause as we welcome Professor Dr. Karanam Pushpanadam. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. At the outset, Let me thank Globethics and the partner universities in Philippines for organizing such a very important topic for discussion today. And when you talk about the present generation, rather you talk about a new breed of civilization that we are experiencing. And we are all part of creating that civilization. And we are all part of experiencing that civilization. And this is what we call it as a knowledge-based society. This terminology is popularly known in the recent past, that we proudly say that we are living in a knowledge-based society, information-driven society. And therefore, our approach to learning and our approach to life and living need to be re-understood, reconceptualized. So in this very important context, I feel that this conference is the utmost importance to understand about the societies that we are currently living in and the society that we wish to prepare, create for the future generations. I think this is one of the greatest responsibilities that we have as citizens of the global world. So let me thank Ms. Rajula, Dr. Jose, and also Dr. Kristen from Globethics for inviting me to share some of my ideas about the knowledge-based society and the future of learning and the global trends that are happening across. Friends, before I begin, I would like to make an impression that the knowledge is power. You know, somebody said rightly that the knowledge is the currency of the modern world. So the knowledge is given utmost importance. Therefore, today we talk about the information-driven society, the knowledge-based society. So in the knowledge-based societies, the institutions that promote, propagate education, whether schools, colleges, universities, they are all part of what I call them is learning organizations. So in the concept of learning organizations, with a broader framework of knowledge-based society, we need to think about the knowledge workers. Who are those knowledge workers? And how they construct knowledge? And how that knowledge can be given to the users through a systematic, scientific, organized way of learning? And how this learning can lead to the creation of what you call as the global village, developing the concept of global citizenship, which is very, very important today in the context of education for sustainable development. I'm sure that you must have discussed in the previous sessions. When you talk about education for sustainable development, you are talking about basically people, because the planet is used, governed, monitored by people, their actions, their attitudes, and the people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. People, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership, which are the essential dimensions of education for sustainable development. Therefore, the knowledge base and the learning strategies are vital in this context. Friends, let us discuss about the human civilization that took place. The human societies, how they were formed. And today we proudly say that we are in the 4th industrial revolution. So each of these civilizations have given lot of inputs to understand, articulate, and position our actions in the society. Therefore, our actions lead to the future, the growth and the development and the sustainability of the societies. You know, the initial civilization was a tribal civilization, where the needs were very less, the knowledge exploration was very less, and people were confined to a particular geographical locations and were leading their life. And then gradually we entered into the agricultural civilizations. We started agricultural activities, and we explored different ways and means through which the agricultural production can be enhanced. And this was a very significant phase of transformation that took place from the tribal societies to agrarian societies, agricultural societies. And since the human exploration to knowledge, innovation is always existing and also demonstrated through their actions and thinking. Therefore, we moved from agricultural societies to industrial societies, where we could design certain kind of the machines, and these machines help us to create the mass production. Therefore, the agricultural to industrial societies, we reached to the mass production. We defined certain occupations, and we also linked to certain economic activity. And today, friends, in the mid-19th century, which mid-20th century, we have reached to a society of what we call proudly a knowledge-based society, where there is an information access is more with the help of several developments that took place. Whether you talk about the political decision making in terms of globalization, liberalization policies, and also the revolutions in information and communication technologies. Therefore, there is no boundary in terms of knowledge sharing and knowledge creation, and which is a blessing, especially to the field of education and also the educators at all levels. So we are living in the knowledge-based society, not directly entered into this phase, but we have been experiencing transformation right from tribal societies to agricultural society to industrial society. And today we are talking about the knowledge-based society. So the prior to knowledge-based society, we were also experienced rather a society called information society. Several researchers were there on developing the information literacy, where the people can identify the information and make use of for problem solving. So from information societies to knowledge society, where there is an element of what you call social capital, the concern for human life and well-being, concern for society, and therefore with the social dimension added to information society is resulted into knowledge-based society. So why I'm sharing these historical developments of human civilization is that any activity that we do in the form of knowledge creation, knowledge accessibility, and the knowledge applicability, it should have the concern of human well-being, the development of human conduct, and therefore it is essential to understand the ethical inputs into these dimensions of the knowledge-based society, right from the knowledge generation, the knowledge preserving, and also knowledge utilization. Friends, when you talk about knowledge-based society, it is the society which are economically and culturally characterized to create a kind of a knowledge which can be used by everyone without differentiating people with the caste, with the creed, with the economic status, with the gender, where the knowledge is universally accessible and can be applied for the betterment of human conditions in the society. This is where the people working in the knowledge societies are actually working in. However, we also need to understand, we have been talking about the knowledge, and there is a specific branch of understanding this knowledge is well defined in the domain of philosophy. It talks about the epistemological understanding about the knowledge and its branches, and how this knowledge over a period of time is generated, and how people learning this knowledge and started applying into their own domains. You know, when you see the historical development of knowledge sources over these societies, from the tribal to agriculture to industrial to information to knowledge-based societies, the human intellect called logic, whether it is inductive or deductive logic, through which people try to connect their experiences to the natural happenings and addressing to their issues and challenges and the problems. And that's how today what we are. And today we reach to a level of living in virtual world, virtual societies, making use of artificial intelligence in all domains of human activities. So the man and the machine, the technology and the human brain are more or less need to work together in a more harmonious way to create a society which is what you call equitable, inclusive, and the holistic. I think this is the main concern of what you call the knowledge-based society. So the institutions which are responsible for this knowledge-based society are also most important to perform their responsibilities in a more ethical and fair practices within the institutions. For example, when you talk about learning, learning is something which brings a permanent change in our behavior. It is an enabling process. Therefore, learning doesn't end in knowing. Any pedagogist talks about learning doesn't end in knowing. It is not the knowledge alone. It is the knowledge, it is the understanding, it is the application, it is the analysis, it is the synthesis, and it is the evaluation. It is the higher cognitive abilities that you are actually talking about. And therefore, this learning in the knowledge-based society, where information is the prime actor, where the technology is an enabling factor, where the individual lifelong learning practices are vital, and how the learning organizations at all levels can really move forward, and how that practice can be really enhanced in the systems, which is a very, very important thing that we need to discuss today. You know, friends, when you talk about learning, learning happens from home. Everybody knows the home is the first place for the learning. And there is a beautiful saying, it says, the child learns the first lesson between the kiss of the mother and the care of the father. So the family as the central unit for learning, and the family is instrumental for the formation of the personality of the child at that tender age, need to be a center for what you call it as a knowledge base. And this knowledge base in the form of social capital, relationships, the trust, the faith, the patience, the hope. I think, friends, these things are essential that a family can contribute to the learning in the knowledge-based society. And when it comes to schools, colleges, and established institutions, what is most important is to enable the learner to engage into the learning process. Therefore, we call in the knowledge-based society, the teachers are not mere the people who teach in the classrooms. We are calling in terms of the knowledge facilitators. They are the learning mentors. Thereby, they try to engage the learner into the learning process. Friends, here, there are three important things that we need to consider. In the knowledge-based society, when our goal is to enhance learning, rather it is the future of the learning. The future of the learning is to engage the learner into the learning process. And this engagement is not necessarily the cognitive engagement, but the engagement need to be what you call as the emotional engagement and the social engagement. So friends, when you talk in terms of the technological driven classrooms, when you are talking in terms of the information driven systems, what is necessary is to enable our children, our students to engage both at cognitive level, both at emotional level, and both at what you call is the social level. I think these three important levels of engagement is something which is needed in the future of learning at all levels. See that when you talk about cognitive engagement deals with creating opportunities for people to think creatively with their logic, critical thinking, creative thinking. You know, the thought process has to be nurtured, thereby it leads to innovation. Therefore, cognitive is not at the knowledge level alone, but the cognitive engagement is to enable students to come out with new ideas, new perspectives. And these new ideas and perspectives vary from the grade level and the level of the learner. That should be the focus, and that should be the future of learning. And when you talk about the emotional engagement, you know, emotional engagement is something, what do you call it, as the fuel for learners to learn. Unless and until there is an affective attribute incorporated into the learning process, the learning endurance is questionable. So what we learn today is not for immediately writing exams. What we learn today, we need to remember for the future. And we need to apply in a challenging situations, and we need to prove that we are capable of resolving the problems. Therefore, emotional engagement actually takes the learner beyond the classrooms and make the learner a lifelong learner. I think the future of the learning is to make learner a lifelong learner, which is a very, very important thing, and which the technology supports, which the policies actually promotes, and therefore every educator need to act on these lines. And the third one is social engagement. See, learning in the future is not an individual enterprise. Learning in future is a collaborative endeavor. We are living in a networked world. Therefore, what is most important is how people can be connected and can be positioned into a great journey of learning. Therefore, we need to come out with what you call as the learning communities. So the institution of learning today need to create these opportunities. Therefore, the learner becomes a lifelong learner, and the institutions can really connect to people and create a kind of an environment which you call it as the learning communities. And friends, finally, I would like to talk about how this can be done in the institutions. See, the first thing is every institution need to create the knowledge assets. Every institution need to come out with information policies. We are very fortunate in India. We have the right to information is an act, which means every individual has a right to know the information. Therefore, it leads to some kind of what you call a right for the individual to exercise and also get the benefit and live a happy and peaceful life. So creating that knowledge assets within the institutions. And number two, and also making policies where these assets can be free and applied to all kind of people in the society, whether what you call it as an inclusive society, it's an equitable society that needs the knowledge and information flow from everywhere. And that's what you call it as the democratizing the information. We are very fortunate that we have been working on open educational resources, OERs, at higher education, even in the school education. We have several massive open online programs which are coming up, where the learner can really choose what he wants to and upgrade their knowledge and skills beyond the text, beyond the curriculum, beyond the school, beyond the universities. I think we are moving in this direction. The future of learning is the learning for lifelong, learning for life-wide, learning for life and living. With this, I stop here, and I would be very happy to address your questions. I once again thank Globethics and the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Karanam Pushpanada, for that wonderful presentation on the future of learning in higher education, the global trends. You have nourished us with a beautiful background on education, and you started by, talking to us about the different civilizations, starting from the initial civilization, which was tribal in nature, through the agricultural civilization, industrial civilization, and finally the knowledge society, which is where we are right now. And you have ably told us that during this period, what is really important is the fact that this knowledge society should be equitable and holistic in nature. And you have highlighted a number of things and given us, a way forward by telling us that institutions of learning or higher learning should be creators of knowledge assets. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I wish now to, look through and see the questions that have been posed. You can also look through the chat and see the questions and answer them, but I will pose a few of them that, we would like to hear your response on, especially related to ethics and in the teaching fraternity. One question that has been posed there is a participant is seeking to know, in many jurisdictions, not just in India, teachers are not very well paid. They are exploited, as the question poses. So while a part of other teachers, probably those employed by government or something like that are probably paid better. The question is, do you see this as an ethical issue? And will the teachers then be promoters of ethics when they themselves are victims of ethical violation all through their lives? The question.
Yes, very interesting. The question posed by the participants. It's a common understanding whether we go with the ethics or go with the economical benefits. So the question here is whether teaching is more of economic business or the teaching is more of ethical business. So ideologically, when we talk about a teacher working in an organization, therefore we call it as teaching is more of a passion than a job. And it all depends on how you take it. If you consider it as a job, therefore you expect more of economic gains. And we know that human need and the desire is unlimited. Even if you are paid tomorrow, maybe beyond your expectation, that becomes a disappointment for you day after tomorrow because your needs grow and there is no limit to it. But what I suggest to this forum is accept that teaching is not a highly paid job, but the teaching is a job which is highly respected, and the teaching is a job which is highly important to social transformation. Therefore, we need to cultivate this idea right from the teacher training, that it's not a job that you have chosen to make money. And the moment you make money, you get disappointed. But friends, believe me, if you make teaching as your passion, and you can be remembered even after your life. Therefore, we need to develop these kind of inputs right from the preparation of the teachers and try to bend their mind that teaching is not to be seen as a job, but teaching has to be seen as a profession, as a passion. And unless and until we make this mind, we cannot solve this problem, because the money and the pay and also the political, the economic, cultural conditions, all these actually matters. Therefore, my only submission to all of you today is, friends, make teaching as your passion and make your mind that you are the part of the great social transformation. And then you never face any kind of ethical dilemma, because you already know that you have not chosen this field where you get a lot of money, but the respect. I think I have answered this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very well said. Let us all make teaching a passion. It is a calling rather than, a career. The second question is, some higher education institutions fabricate the records in the assessment and accreditation process. In such scenarios, how can we expect them to engage in social engagement?
See that human actions are so dynamic and unpredictable. In a sense, what we see today, everything was created by human mind. It's you and me, our thinking, our intelligence, our actions. So if you see the human civilization, we developed certain institutions, and we feel that these institutions can protect the human rights, and these institutions can protect the human life and living. And on the other side, we the people who want to find out the loopholes, little spaces to encourage the unethical practices. And therefore, we need to understand that these institutions that we have developed, whether you talk about the setting of the standards at higher education, the assessment practices, are good to improve the quality. And the quality institutions can only develop quality people. And the quality people can only bring social transformation. And the social transformation actually impacts everyone, you and me, and we are part of it. So here we need to understand that we are the actors and we are the beneficiaries. Therefore, the ethical aspects in individuals can really enable people to think beyond their personal interests and to look at the global perspectives and the global welfare. I think that is the kind of education that's needed today to give to our next generations. And therefore, today we have the professional standards of the teachers. If I talk in terms of India, we have come out with the National Quality Standards Framework in higher education. We have come out with graduate attributes. All these things are essentially guiding the educational processes. And thereby these processes can develop quality people. And only through quality people, you can develop total quality management of the institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. In the interest of time, I I just want to pose the remaining questions all at once to you, and then you choose which one you can be able to answer within the time, but you can also engage, after that you can engage with the participants through the chat. The first one I want to identify is coming from Rama. How knowledge-based societies, how can knowledge-based societies be developed by illiterate teachers, since learning starts at home? The second question is...
Sorry, it is illiterate parents, which is illiterate parents, not teachers.
Illiterate parents, sorry. The second one is, you spoke about knowledge assets and free access to information. Who should pay for the creation and free access? The third one is, if humans cannot practice ethics, why do we need to speak about it? And the fourth is, if standards are only in paper and not practiced, how do we ensure ethics in education? Let me just see, maybe one more. One more. Do you consider India a knowledge-based society? And finally, in the rat race of creating open educational resources, that is knowledge sharing, how can we check whether it is right or wrong? You may choose any of those questions in the remaining 3 minutes.
I can understand the limit of time in such kind of academic forums, but the kind of the list of questions that you ask now, the response is that really addresses all the questions that you talk about. The India, when I talk about, is a pluralistic country, a country which has a cultural heritage, rich cultural heritage. Whether you have talk about Ramayana, you talk about Bhagavad Gita, you talk about all the scriptures that we have. These scriptures actually talks about certain value systems of that time, how a personification of those characters have given certain values and the guidelines for human the behavior. See, when you talk about misconduct is has become rather a natural activity of human beings. And due to the misconduct, they are also the victims. Whether you or somebody else, your misconduct is actually causing badly to human being. And please remember, this kind of an action has a cyclic effect. Ultimately, it comes to you. There is a beautiful saying, a teacher who passed a student unethically, and the student in that process became a doctor. And the same teacher was admitted in the same hospital. And he knows how the student has reached to that degree. And friends, you understand the situation. And let us not create such kind of societies. Please remember, ethics is not a choice for you. Ethics cannot be a choice. Whether you like it, you dislike it, ethics has to be an integral part of your thought process, of your actions, and your lifestyle. And if you avoid ethics, please remember that you are going to be the victim of it. And friends, we need to have the patience. We need to work on positive mindset. We need to work with hope. I end up by saying that, you know, a patience to yourself. If you are patient to yourself, it is confidence. If you are patient to your family, it is love. And if you are patient to God, it is faith. Friends, we need to go lead our lives with hope, with love, and with faith. And that's how we can create a society which is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for those wonderful reactions to the questions. Let us all give Professor a round of applause virtually
Thank
for
you.
that wonderful presentation and reaction to questions. You have summarized it very well at the end, that ethics is what we ought to do. And what we ought to do is the right thing, whether somebody is watching or whether nobody is watching. We must always do the right thing. So I am immensely thankful to you, sir, Professor Karam Pushpanadam, for sparing your precious time from your busiest schedule to grace this course. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts. This will surely be going to encourage us in our future events, as well as our future learning. We look forward for many more opportunities to listen to you, and we are thankful for what you have always done. We are now going to go on to the next, and I call upon Dr. Surekha to take the podium. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Surekha from the Department of Psychology, Christ Divinity University, Delhi NCR campus, India. Greetings to one and all present today. So it's a great honor to welcome and introduce Dr. Tony Sam George, Head Department of Psychology and Dean School of Social Sciences at Christ Divinity University, Central Campus, Bangalore. Dr. George is associated with Christ University since 2008 and is a trained psychiatric social worker and practicing psychotherapist who specializes in group therapy, couple and family therapy, and student counseling. Dr. George has done his research focused on group psychotherapy from the now National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, Bangalore. Subsequently, he spent time directing and coordinating the master's level training programs in counseling psychology at Montfort College, Bangalore. He's here to deliver a talk on ethical issues in educational research management and practice. Let us all welcome him by applauding virtually and listen to him. Dr. Tony, sir, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Surekha. Thank you, colleagues at Globe Ethics and the partner institutions for this opportunity to reflect with you on some of the ethical issues that you and I face day in and day out in our lives as educators and formators and higher education professionals. Before I kind of launch into this very brief talk, a couple of words by way of assumption. I think the struggles that all of us face, the ethical dilemmas and challenges that all of us face in our lives as educators is universal. I can see in the chat room, just looking at the comments and the suggestions that have been coming up from the previous talk, that there are PhD scholars in this group, there are undergrad scholars, graduate scholars, and professors, and so on. And all of us in our academic and professional journeys have had a fair share of navigating through ethical challenges and deep questions that we confront ourselves with on a daily basis. I'm going to speak with all of you, or rather, I'm going to reflect with all of us together on some of what I consider as perhaps the biggest challenges facing us in higher education today, irrespective of which part of the world we are in, whether you're in India, the United States, the Philippines, Nigeria, Tanzania, or any other part of the globe, the Philippines, These are challenges, I think, that are universal, and we all face our own share of these challenges within our journeys as researchers and higher educators. I'm going to speak to you about a challenge of exploitation. I will then speak about the challenge of value and benefit, and that's really the axiological question in research. I will speak about the challenge of formation and, of course, the challenge of sponsor. And I will share what I mean by these challenges as we go on. Listening to any lecture on research, one of the first questions that a professor in a research 101 class would ask to his students is probably, what is research? And then you'll get a set of answers, and a lot of these answers go around the word, the concept of truth, that research is a search for truth. And then eventually there is a consensus that truth is what is most consistent with reality and so on. I think what is lacking or missing in a lot of these narratives about research is the fact that research in higher education or research in any other field is really a human problem more than an infrastructural, more than, a problem of curriculum, more than a problem of, resources. It's essentially a human problem. And I will explain why I mean the ethical challenges in research is a human problem as we go along. But I want to juxtapose that argument with what I put in bracket on the PowerPoint as conditions. There was a lot of discussion earlier about whether we as human beings are inherently prone to, misbehavior, misconduct, or violating ethical norms. Most research and most experience that we have from higher education research, and also from hard sciences like social neuroscience, says that human beings are not predisposed towards misbehavior and misconduct. In fact, if you look at percentages, for those of you who are more, believers of hard facts, only 7% of ethical misconduct in the world today can be attributed to individual factors of researchers. The remaining is because of the conditions that we create around doing research. And I think that is good news for those of you who are worried about all of us being inherently predisposed towards breaking norms and being unethical and so on. My argument is that a lot of challenges, ethical dilemmas, and problems that we face in research are around narratives of power, narratives of revenue and money. And when I speak about predatory publishing, we'll speak a little bit more about it. It's about control, who controls knowledge and narratives, and the kind of knowledge that is being shaped in our universities and higher education. It's about competition. And somebody earlier spoke about rating, institutional ratings, and so on. Everybody wants to be the #1 university in the world. It's also about greed, sometimes researchers, but a lot of times third parties. It's also about temptation, especially for naive researchers, very young researchers. There is a lot of temptation to publish and to make sure that your research gives you the kind of value that you are looking for. Let me go to the first challenge, and that's the challenge of exploitation. I think perhaps from the early 1990s, several of us have been faced with the dilemma of predatory publishing. When the especially North America, went through a financial crisis and librarians had to unsubscribe from hard published journals, there was this movement for open access publishing. What open access publishing movement actually did was open up an opportunity for predatory publishing for people, publishing houses who are motivated by revenue to make a fast buck, to provide an opportunity for naive researchers, and I'm using the word naive paradoxically here, to publish. And the result of predatory publishing, as you would agree with me, is that hundreds of doctoral candidates, hundreds of graduate students around the world were able to get their degrees because there was an opportunity to publish. And we know that predatory publishing is underlined by poor peer review and the kind of standards that ensures conditions for good research. So we have today in our academic space all around the world, hundreds of researchers and pieces of research, which is a product of predatory publishing. For those of you who are interested in higher education research, you've probably followed the work of Jeffrey Beal, University of Colorado librarian who was bold and courageous enough to start talking about predatory publishing and put the list of predatory publishing houses for which he almost lost his job, and was scrutinized very deeply for what he did, including people from academia, including university chancellors, vice chancellors, fellow librarians, and so on, because everybody had an agenda that predatory publishing could fulfill, and that was the agenda of being seduced to publish by paying some money, and then make sure that publication gets access. I think the result of thousands of pieces of predatory publishing over the years and today, right now, as I speak, is the corruption of the academia. We've reached a point where it's not easy for us to believe what is researched. I think that's an ethical dilemma for all of us, and a responsibility for those of us, especially those of us in power. If there are deans and vice chancellors and department chairs and others in a conference like this, I think there's a great call to all of us to ask questions to ourselves about what we are doing to prevent the corruption of academia. While knowledge can be a result of research, the real question to ask is what kind of research has led to that knowledge. Take the case of medical science. Today, the COVID has impacted most of us in our lives, and we've gone through some real challenges in the past couple of years. And we're looking to medical science for answers to questions of existence and survival today. But with predatory publishing and exploitation by publishing houses, a lot of science out there is not trustworthy science. There is research that is celebrated as being vital in answering questions about health and livelihood, which cannot be trusted, which has led to several problems in human life. While medical science perhaps can be considered as one of the spaces that matters to all of us very closely, I think every field and every discipline in higher education has lent itself to the impact of counterfeit science. And I think that really is the first challenge that I want to reflect with all of you today. What can we do to kind of prevent the big push that publishing houses, predatory publishing houses, are placing on our universities, our university systems, and so on, and the gullible researchers that we are can do to prevent ourselves from engaging with that. Predatory publishing, in my opinion, has broken at least three major, rules in three disciplines in ethics: business ethics, very poor business ethics, research ethics, and also publishing ethics. So if you look at these three forms of ethics that are related to research and publishing, you'll know that predatory publishing has in fact infringed on all three because of their business practices, the research ethics that they follow, and of course, publishing ethics. I'm sure many of you in higher education get at least an email or two every day asking for your work to be published in some obscure journal that sounds really, great. And that's why I used the word seduction a little while ago, because you might get a request from the American Society for something, and it kind of speaks to you, that vulnerable part of you which says, oh, this sounds really great. But predatory publishing is really a seduction, and several of us in fact fall for that seduction. I want to speak a little bit about the challenge of value, and this is really the axiological question for those of you who are well versed with philosophy of science. One of the questions we ask to research is, what is the benefit of research? And I know that the speaker after me is going to speak about social responsibility, and the speaker before me spoke quite a bit about the value of the knowledge that we create. I think researchers are partly to blame for the challenge of value, because we have insulated ourselves as a research community. You and I know that you might spend a lot of time doing research, and this research is not available to those who would benefit from that research. And that's because the research community has developed certain norms around how research should be disseminated. In fact, for me, and for us, those of us who are interested in principles of ethics like social justice and fidelity, and the expectation that research findings should actually reach people, and there must be transformation, as the speaker before me said, we suffer from this dissemination paradox. I have myself done a great deal of research that is meant to help people who suffer from anxiety disorders. And you and I know very well that these are challenges that all of us face much more today after the COVID pandemic. But this information cannot be accessed by people who need it, because there are rules about how the work that we do reaches the community. There are very few researchers in the world who would take a pen and paper and write about his research for a newspaper or on social media or so on, because there are rules about how research is closely guarded by the research community. And the other challenge with the real benefit of research is because of questionable research practices. Those of you who are ardent students of research ethics, you know what QRP is, questionable research practices. Sometimes not telling the truth as it is, trying to conceal the kind of research that we do, post hoc hypothesizing, or just sharing what we think is useful for people to know, kind of concealing a little bit of what we did and so on, and several misbehaviors as well, like making up some part of the data and so on. While research misconduct is not huge in several countries in the world, misbehaviors are quite rampant. I think the product of QRPs, questionable research practices and misbehaviors today, is that we don't have research that we can actually believe to be true of what it says. And I think that indirectly affects benefit, because if we produce research that is not valuable, then that research is not going to lead to the kind of transformation we expect it to be. The other challenge of value that I've struggled with a lot is the question about whose voices are being heard in research, right? What is research talking about, and what is research talking to? Some of my colleagues in South and Central Africa do a lot of work using a methodology called photo voice. Photo voice is giving voice to children in armed conflict areas and marginalized children by using a camera and taking photographs about their lives and then converting that to some kind of action research. That's an example of research where the true voices of people who are going through challenges in their lives are heard. But there are very few such examples in the world today. Those of you who are PhD scholars, you're doing a review of literature, you go through several published research articles, you're unlikely to find research that really speaks about the challenges of people and the voices of individuals around the world for whom the research is actually meant to respond to. Let me now speak about a third challenge, the challenge of formation. Research, in a sense, if you look at the individual, you, the person of research in philosophy known as the subject of research, there is a process of formation that a researcher goes through. It's often held within the context of supervisory structures. Okay? And these supervisory structures are, in fact, quite crucial in determining the outcome of not just the research, but also the health and the worldview of the researcher. A colleague in Hong Kong University makes an argument and says that doctoral research can make or break a researcher. This argument is very true and justified, because there is research from around the world to show that doctoral students who do their PhD programs either break down or they have positive experiences. And today, due to the impact of rating agencies and university education careers requiring PhD degrees for educational promotion, we find that a lot of PhD scholars are rather broken than being made as researchers who actually contribute effectively to research. And one of the reasons for this is the abuse and misuse of the supervisory relationship. Research has shown that your experience and my experience as a researcher often has a role to play in how we socialize others around us. And there were questions earlier on about, how we can, be a difference and how we can make a change in the world around us. I think it starts with you and I. It starts with us. Perhaps I've had a negative experience being supervised or being formed as a researcher. And I think it's important to take that experience and look through that experience and convert that into an opportunity for us not to be perpetuators of that in the future. During the pandemic, there were several pieces of research done on the mental health of doctoral scholars, and I'm taking doctoral researchers and scholars as a point of discussion today for speaking about mental health concerns. In the United Kingdom, in 2016, before the pandemic, research indicated 36% of doctoral scholars reported depression. I'm using depression as a mental health indicator. In Belgium, 2022, just this year, during the pandemic, 41% of PhD scholars reported mental health problems in the form of depression. In India, where I am speaking from now, in the south of India, from a state called the state of Kerala, in two state universities, research showed that 71% of students PhD scholars reported depression. If you look at research like this all around the world, the story is the same. PhD scholars go through significant amount of mental health concerns. And one of the reasons for this is because of abusive supervisory structures and institutional structures that do not promote the well-being of researchers. And these are stories that we carry on into our lives, and we then perpetuate that with others. Finally, I want to speak about the challenge of sponsor. Research is often sponsored. In our graduate days or our undergraduate days, research is often sponsored by our own ideas and that curiosity to want to learn how to do research. But as we evolve as researchers in higher education, we soon realize that research is often shaped by the ideology, political motivations, and other agents, sometimes institutional, sometimes political, sometimes economic. And then there is a problem of funding, because you want to write grants and you want to write projects for which funding is available, and funding is often, an outcome of the agenda of an ideology or the agenda of a particular corporation or a particular group of people. And so a lot of research that we do is often not necessarily shaped by questions that require to be answered through research, questions of existence or questions of social responsibility, but really questions around what others want us to answer. This is very true of several countries. It's very true of India. As I speak today, I know that research projects and funding is allocated to areas and topics which kind of fulfill the agenda of certain groups of people. It is true all around the world. There are countries and continents where research funding is not available because funders do not find value that will return back to them by promoting research in those areas. For those of us who have a colonial past, I think the sponsorship of research is a harsh reminder of how knowledge creation today is still colonized by economic and political agendas and ideological agendas. And in a sense, higher education has not really kind of freed itself from the colonizing powers, which was once, more geographical, but today it's a colonization of the mind. Even narratives of decolonization of curriculum, for instance, have not been able to make breakthroughs when it comes to revenue models of research. So today, universities, professors, and higher education staff are under a lot of pressure. If they don't produce patents, copyrights, and publications, their own career and their promotion is held back. And I think it is that juxtaposing of the human drive and need versus what larger systems pressurize universities and university staff that causes a lot of ethical dilemmas in higher education and within higher education. Of course, there is a question that many of us will ask: what can we do to confront some of these dilemmas? And my answer has always been the same. It starts with us. There is a responsibility, not so much on the researcher, but on people like me, for instance. I am the Dean of Research. I'm a Dean at the university. I'm an additional director for research. I think there is responsibility for people in power to actually courageously start working around some of these challenges, because the lower you go down in the hierarchy of research, like PhD scholars and then graduate students, they are fairly powerless. What's the best that you can do? Do a demonstration, write a blog, and so on. But there are people like us who can do much more by creating equitable conditions for researchers like you to actually grow and not face the brunt of some of these challenges that higher education researchers actually face today's world. So those are some reflections for you, just to go over the 4 challenges once more. The challenge of exploitation and how predatory publishing and revenue models have impacted higher education research. The question about what is most valuable in research, and the knowledge that we produce through research, is it actually benefiting those who it is supposed to benefit, and is there actually a real transformation or only a transformation of certain ideologies of persons or individuals or systems? There's a challenge of formation where the person of the researcher is impacted through unequitable, unjust supervisory structures, institutional structures, as well as through the misuse of some of these relationships. And the glaring mental health challenges that researchers are facing today. And finally, the challenge of sponsor. Who shapes research? Who shapes the outcome of research? And are we really able to do the kind of research we really want to do? And there are several examples from around the world where professors have been stopped from doing research and not given grants just because they were courageous enough to speak about some of these challenges that they face. So with that, let me wind up and say thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of these reflections with you. And maybe if there are questions, I can pick some of them up.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tony, for that very comprehensive and simple presentation, which is clear for all of us. I think you very nicely spoke about the challenges which are common for all of us across the globe related to research at higher education institutions. So you did speak about the challenge of exploitation, wherein you highlighted about the human factors like competition, power, greed, and what they can do to the entire process of research. You also highlighted the much important and global problem, which is predatory publishing, and we spoke about the great call for all of us to take preventive steps and what we can all do collectively to reduce these corrupt practices which are there in research and publishing. You have also highlighted about the challenge related to value, which is mostly about questionable research practices which are being adopted by researchers across at faculty level, at scholar level, and even at the student level. So you also spoke about how...
Sorry, Dr. Sureka, your sound is very disturbed. Do you keep the microphone? Yeah, closer. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. So you were also talking about the questionable research practices and the misbehaviors also, which, kind of pose a challenge to value. We also heard from you about the challenge of formation, I think, when you spoke about the importance of supervision, which is required in research. You have spoken about how the breakdown of supervision process can lead to some kind of important challenges during the entire process, and also the mental health concerns which researchers are facing across while they pursue their research and publication. And lastly, you also spoke about the challenges of sponsor, which are mostly problems which you said were about the context, funding opportunities available, the resources which were available to the people and faculty, and how that can be used. So thank you very much. And then I think let me quickly look at the chat section for some questions. Yeah, so there is this one question by Mr. Raymond, who says, what should or can researchers do to have policymakers implement findings and recommendations of research, such that researcher does not only remain on the shelves, research just does not remain in shelves of libraries? So what's your response to that?
One of the, could you just mute your mic?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Raymond. One of the unexplored or underused methodologies in research is policy research and action research. And I think more and more we want researchers to use those methodologies because action research is one method that will definitely not stay on the shelf, right? It will not stay in the library. So I would encourage social science researchers, especially to think about action research methods. These are great methods to use in education, in policy studies, sociology, social work, practice, psychology, and so on. And action research definitely speaks to people, and not just theoretical implications that are drawn out of it, but it really speaks to how change has taken place. So that's something that I would recommend. In fact, earlier when I spoke about photo voice as a method that is used in several countries to work with marginalized groups, that's a great example of a form of action research using a qualitative methodology, but there are several other great examples. I would also encourage researchers to think about research around policy briefs, which can directly speak to people, policymakers and others as well.
Yeah, thank you. And the next question is, can you please say a few words about how to create fund for research purpose in developing countries? Research funding.
Very difficult question to answer, Mr. Rahman, but I can speak about one or two experiments that I'm familiar with. We know that research funding is often, part of certain budgetary allocations by governments. For instance, if there is a particular, emphasis that the government of a country wants to look at, then there are budgets, then there are associations, professional associations, societies that set aside a part of their fund, then there are philanthropic associations and so on. Now, creating funding for research is challenging in a country unless the need for that particular research is brought to the attention of people who are interested in partnering with you. And so something that researchers can do is to do basic research to show that there is a need for this kind of research to bring about further change. And that can be used to lobby and advocate for funding. I also know that many of us, especially from the countries that we come from, are not fully aware of the opportunities that is available, funding opportunities that is available. In fact, over the past 10 years in our university, when we track the funding opportunities that have actually been taken up by professors, we know that one of the biggest reasons why researchers are not able to access funds is just because they don't know that there are people and organizations out there who are interested in funding certain kinds of research. And maybe at some point, some of us can send you some information that might be helpful in that respect. I also know, Dr. Surekha, I also know of one experiment done in a country where I lived for many years, where local school students and a school teacher lobbied for funding from the local community and created a fund which has now grown into a major philanthropic endeavor.
That's nice. I think how we could also, small activities in the community can also lead to research funding opportunities. So one last question here. There's also a feedback. They say, I think it's an anonymous attendee, name is not here. Excellent analysis of challenges for researchers. The question is, do you agree that the pressure to publish has resulted in publication of research articles that are not really useful to the domain or to the society?
Yeah, not just an agreement, it's a fact. It's the truth. Since the 1990s, the pressure to publish is directly related to predatory publishing. It's directly related to a lot of research that is not peer reviewed and that is not useful to the domain or to the society. So that's a well-established fact. There is research on it. There are articles in high impact fact journals like Nature on rather nonsense research or useless research, or what I call as wastebasket research that has emerged just because of the pressure to publish. So I agree with you completely on that.
Thank you so much for answering all those questions. Due to paucity of time, so we will move forward. So on behalf of the organizing committee here, thank you, Dr. Tony Sam George, for taking your time out to speak to all of us today on this very important topic. Your knowledge and wisdom definitely inspired and motivated all of us to respond positively and introspect and reflect on the ideas which you have spoken about. So the chat
comments also reflect about the interactiveness of your session and then how everyone was able to connect with the kind of problems which you have posed. So thank you so much for doing this session, and we look forward to having many more opportunities to listen to you. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Over to Ali.
Good day. I'm Ali from Cebu Technological University in Philippines. I'm here to introduce our next speaker, who is an adjunct professor from the Department of Languages and Communication Sciences of Polytechnic Institute of Porto Alegre and Center for Comparative Studies of the University of Lisbon, Portugal. He is Dr. Luis Miguel Cardoso. Dr. Cardoso will discuss shaping knowledge societies, social responsibility, as a core contribution of higher education institutions. Dr. Cardoso, kindly take over.
Good morning, greetings from Portugal. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Rajula, Dr. Christine, and GlobeEthics, of course, for the very kind invitation to be here. I will also like to send my warm greetings to Cebu Technological University and to Christ University, of course. And I will also like to thank the very kind introduction that is made by Professor Ali Taneo. Thank you. Thank you for your very kind words. So, my dear colleagues and my dear friends, it's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here with you today. I would like to share my presentation. And I would like to start a journey with you regarding the topic that I chose, shaping knowledge societies, social responsibility as a core contribution of higher education institutions. So, my dear colleagues and my dear friends, universities are no longer just connected with knowledge and training professionals and giving them the opportunity to enhance their learning skills, to enter the labor market as very good professionals, as excellent professionals. Nowadays, universities must go beyond. Universities have a great task ahead, and universities must prepare their students so they can also be active citizens. This means that we have to connect knowledge, we have to connect knowledge with ethics, we have to connect knowledge, ethics, values, and principles. So this is our common endeavor nowadays regarding higher education institutions. And of course, when we talk about higher education institutions and the connection with social responsibility, of course, we all know that higher education institutions are increasingly aware of the changing world and about society that surrounds them, which is reflected in their choices regarding curriculum design and the blending of innovations that acknowledge these constant challenges. So these days, it is important to think about degrees, not only in terms of the knowledge involved, but also in terms of their connection to the labor market, specific needs concerning new skills, namely social and soft skills, and integration in the surrounding community. This means that we have to think about combining a solid training in higher education with the ability to be flexible, adapt to new challenges, and act as a committed citizen. So in this context, higher education institutions must give enhanced tools to their students to help define their learning path and master new skills considering their future careers. So in this context, higher education institutions are increasingly focused, for example, in the social domain, in the intervention of the future professional in society, which requires training that is linked to values and principles, such as social responsibility, that is, professional performance, combined with the promotion of positive impacts on the community and the environment. So on one hand, social responsibility is also found in the matrix of universities, and it embodies the concerns of institutions about their internal and external stakeholders, ethical and transparent management, their commitments to sustainable development, the promotion of active citizenship, social cohesion, contributing to the implementation of great civilizational values and principles, creating more enlightened, empowered, aware, and engaged citizens in the world around them. One of the most interesting researchers that we have nowadays in Portugal, Pereira, emphasizes that universities aim to train professionals with skills, abilities, and competencies to understand life, becoming individual or collective actors characterized by active awareness. So this means that teaching is simultaneously an educational and social process. He also emphasizes that we must ask whether current degrees are truly centered on pedagogical dimension linked with essential curriculum design to create a future professional, whether universities will be evaluating the impact of their actions and education on the community, and what kind of relationship exists with power, and how their contribution is of value to the public interest, of course. So with these 4 questions, the researcher raises the foundations of the contemporary university and the relationship with social responsibility to alert us that universities should teach students to analyze the present time, but also to look into the future, assessing needs and assessing challenges. When we analyze Martin's points of view regarding higher education institutions in 21st century challenges, we can find out some very interesting ideas, and I would like to highlight these ideas. So social responsibility is the responsibility of universities for the impacts of their decisions and activities in society, on society and the environment through transparent and ethical strategies. So these practices should be promoted and encouraged among students and teaching staff, researchers, and non-teaching staff to consider and promote the values of justice, equality, participatory democracy, social responsibility, and sustainability. In addition, there is a concern that RSU contributes to sustainable development including the health and well-being of society, recognizes the expectations of the various social actors involving stakeholders, complies with applicable legislation and standards of behavior, and of course, respect the relevant norms on transparency and public accountability. As for the educational impacts, Valles highlights that universities influence the training of future professionals regarding ethics and values, the way they understand the world, namely through professional deontology and their social actions. This researcher also questions whether universities currently carry out an analysis regarding their actions, namely on the type of people and professionals they train, the adequacy of the curriculum for the training of individuals who contribute to sustainable development, and if they truly have social dynamic. He also emphasizes that universities must act in partnership, in networks, uniting values and the mission of the university with an effective involvement in the social environment that surrounds it, looking for solutions to problems, intervening in territories in which it is located, which reveals a combination between training of students, scientific innovation, and the creation of useful and necessary knowledge for society. So, my dear friends and my dear colleagues, social responsibility, according to Nascimento and other colleagues, is part of the institutional ethos of the university and can only be known to the extent that the scope of this institution in the process of society's development is understood. So without understanding the meaning of what the university organization is and the concepts that shape them, the nature and extent of its relevance cannot be understood. For Calderon, it is unnecessary to talk about us as our social responsibility in educational institutions, since it is found in the DNA of higher education institutions due to their role and social function in the context in which they are located. So it is necessary to understand university social responsibility as a process that includes the entire academic community and also the bonds between universities and society. To study the impact of universities, it will be interesting to analyze university programs and the relationship between universities and social, economic, cultural, and environmental inclusion. That is, from an internal and external perspective. They also emphasize that results must be evaluated and measured, including teaching, research, and connection to society, connection with communities. The management of our universities must also reflect on these concerns as results that the internal public and society expect, and all these expectations are at stake. Researchers Al-Mohamid and Reyes think that the integration of corporate social responsibility and ethics in curriculum is very important, because this could allow teachers to enhance their students' capabilities in the labor market, as those subjects would be inherently applied by them. So curriculum must include a close relationship between learning outcomes, contents, and corporate social responsibility to help students with employment and entrepreneurship. And about social responsibility challenges, let me highlight one of the most interesting reports that we have about education from the last century, that is the Lars Report. And the Lars Report, for example, argues that education in the 21st century is about learning to learn on the cognitive level. But on the other hand, the authors also talk about learning to live together at the social level. The report stressed the urgency of bringing these ideas together in curriculum so that cognitive skills could be developed side by side with ethical and social values. These thoughts are also valuable in other researchers when they emphasize the need to give students the proper skills regarding economic, social, and environmental responsibility, as corporations are requesting professionals with these skills. In summary, dear colleagues and dear friends, higher education institutions should always be connected to their social context, and they must fully respond to the challenges of the labor market. Of course, employers expect graduates possess knowledge, but also values that make them quality professionals, but also to be able to apply a set of values and principles at work and in communities. Thus, on the one hand, curriculum needs to reconcile these dimensions, and on the other hand, universities should provide their students with tools that enable self-knowledge and the definition of personal and future career paths, as this personal discovery is the basis of this new framework of universities in contemporary societies. So values such as social responsibility are today present in the management of universities, in their internal and external actions, as well in curriculum. However, everything must start with the students' empowerment and their career building process. So social responsibility is vital for universities and for our students, so they can become not just excellent professionals, but also engaged and active citizens in their communities. Thank you.
Good evening. Wonderful talk by Dr. Luis Miguel Cardoso. Thank you so much, Dr. Cardoso, for foregrounding the importance of considering social responsibility and curriculum development. Your message is loud and clear over here from a developing country's perspective. We see the importance of really building the students' ability to engage with proper valuing system as professionals, because we couldn't just create students who are knowledgeable, but also students who are able to become effective members of society. Okay, so we have very interesting points here in the chat box, Dr. Cardoso. And yeah, so we have somebody saying that you have a very nice explanation and a very nice presentation. And here's a question from Professor Dennis McCann for Dr. Cardoso. Would you comment on the role of service learning programs for fostering an awareness of social responsibility among our students? I hope that was loud and clear, Dr. Cardoso.
Yes, absolutely, loud and clear. So first of all, thank you, Professor Bejay Bolivar, for your comments. And regarding this question, one of the most important trends that we have now in Europe in universities is working side by side. Our approach is about curriculum with the desires that we receive from the labor market. And when we connect what we think we should give students regarding knowledge, regarding skills, and when we connect all this with the labor market expectations, we can define a new type of curriculum that is a flexible curriculum, a curriculum that includes, of course, not just knowledge, not just curricular units, but also a different type of degrees. The degrees that can be integrating soft skills, social skills, and more important than this, values, ethicals, and principles that are very, very, very important nowadays in our society that is changing very fast, and sometimes we can lose track of what is important. And to have a balanced society, we must also have a balanced educational system. So everything must be connected. So I thank, of course, Professor's question, and I think we must act in different levels. So one level is what we can do in our universities regarding the degrees that we already offer. So we can incorporate social responsibility and different curricular units, for example. We can create units just for enhancing social responsibility with our students, or we can create separate courses in our universities to give our students a parallel track, a parallel path that is connected, of course, with their degrees, but can enhance their competencies, knowledges, and skills regarding social responsibility. So this means that if we choose the curricular unit, if we choose a more flexible curriculum, or if we choose, for example, a special program that can be offered to our students, when our students end their degrees, they'll be entering the labor market with a new mindset, a mindset that is flexible. And of course, we all dealt with the pandemic of the COVID-19. And one of the most important lessons that we have learned during these very harsh times is that we have to adapt. We have to be flexible. And we have to give the labor market a new type of professionals. And these professionals must be, of course, first of all, a mix of knowledge and values, and second, train professionals to endure very difficult and changing situations. And the labor market is always changing. So when we connect these three levels, I think we can create different options for our students to get them to know social responsibility, to absorb the ideas, the key ideas of social responsibility in their actions, and to deliver their actions in the labor market, in corporations, enterprises, wherever they are going to work, in their communities. This is very important, in their communities, not just by being a professional, but first of all, by being an excellent person, by being an excellent person with values, with principles. And universities, of course, are places of knowledge, but they are also places of principles. And I cannot put aside knowledge and principles when I have this portrait of the modern and contemporary university. And the university that we have today is still having a lot of challenges. Of course, we have technological challenges. We have been dealing with the pandemic crisis for more than 2 years, but we have developed resilience, adaptability, and we have been creating networks. For example, this conference, it's a great example for sharing ideas, for sharing best practices, to share ideas from different countries, from different continents, and to try to create something new. And this is why Globe Ethics is doing a great work by connecting universities. For example, now I'm talking with Professor B.J. Bolivar from Cebu Technological University. And we have been listening to Professor from Christ University. I'm talking from Portugal. I'm speaking from Portugal. So we are all connected here in cyberspace. So these are the new challenges for our future. Networking in cyberspace, and God willing, of course, in person, because we are now working in person. And so we must be optimistic. And social responsibility is also about being optimistic. We can make a difference. We can make a difference in our universities. Our students can make a difference and can make a difference in their communities as well. So this is a very complex question. I'm not sure if I gave all the key ideas that the professor had in mind regarding this.
I think that was a very wonderful answer, Professor Cardoso. And that optimism is contagious, actually. There are a lot of interesting questions here in the chat box, but I'll have to read one more since we are short of time. So somebody said, the challenge in connecting students to community engagement is lack of study or curriculum workload on practical exercise in the community. What is your advice on the workload of students to work in field outside classroom and library paperwork? So, you know, going out of the four walls of the classroom. Many faculty consider community engagement only for their promotional scheme to professorship. Any concrete tips for teachers and students? So this is coming from Ethiopia. Wow, I think we share a context somehow here in the Philippines. Dr. Cardoso, would you like to comment on that question?
Yes, absolutely. A very interesting question as well. So I can try and share some experiences and some ideas about some European countries and about what we have here in Portugal, for example. Our students, of course, have a set of curricular units. And what we try to create in our curricular units is a balance, an equilibrium between achieving the goals regarding teaching and learning objectives and the connection with communities, the connection with the labor market, connection with active social responsibility actions. And this can be done in several levels. When we choose a curricular unit, I can, for example, establish with my students a goal. So you have to create a project that connects, for example, the syllabus of my curricular unit with the needs of our community, with the needs, for example, of a special community, the community where you come from. So this is one key idea. So university is not an island. The universities are connected with communities. Universities have to create bonds with their communities. And for example, if we know that our communities have a problem, we must establish communication channels with these communities and try to understand, what do you need from us? Universities must ask communities, my dear friends, what can we do to develop our communities? What can we do to develop our regions? What can we do to develop our countries? So we have projects in curricular units. We have projects in our teaching and learning options. We have internships, for example, and our students can work in our communities, for example, during a semester. Of course, this semester is connected with teaching and learning objectives, but also our students can create a project that is directed to solving a problem that is brought to us, for example, by a corporation, by an enterprise, by an organization, that can be a social, cultural, a financial, marketing problem. And that corporation, that organization tells us, okay, I have this problem, I need to solve this problem. Can you help me with this? And we say, yes, of course we can. So let's work together. So we set up a team that includes a teacher from the university, a team that includes, for example, a student, an internship that's going to make an internship. And we try to make a diagnosis of what is the problem regarding that corporation, that enterprise, or that region. So what is the problem? What do you need? And then we come out with a project. And this is one of the most interesting experiences that we have in universities. That, of course, we are also connected with the wishes, the expectations, and the needs of our communities to solve problems. And when we talk, for example, about research is, of course, absolutely vital for our universities. But research must be connected with the real world. And I really enjoyed the presentation that was made by the previous speaker. Sometimes we publish a lot of papers. And when we publish a lot of papers, we must ask ourselves, is this paper really interesting? Is this paper going to solve a problem? Is this paper going to solve a problem, for example, in my community or in my region or in my country? So this is why research must be, of course, connected with the needs of the region, of the country, of the corporations, of everyone who is coming to us and tells us, can you help us with this problem? And the answer from universities must be only one: yes, we can. So let's work together. For example, if we don't have all the answers, we can connect with other universities. We can create a network. For example, we have a problem about a financial issue. Okay, so we can bring together colleagues from different universities, from different countries. We can create an international team. And of course, this international team can address the needs of the community. And we can come out with a project to solve this problem. So these are some key ideas that we can think about to engage our communities and give our communities what they are expecting from us, that is to solve problems as a teamwork, of course.
Wonderful. We're getting a lot of insights from you, a focus on student empowerment, a focus on research that answers real life issues or real life questions, the questions that need to be answered, and, the importance of networking, building communities with the rest of our context, with the rest of our environment. So that was a very wonderful talk. Dr. Cardoso, you have very positive comments here in the chat box, and I should end the session, the forum now, so we can proceed to the next speaker. Thank you very much. Once again, Dr. Cardoso.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Vijay Bolivar. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks again, Dr. Rajula and Dr. Christina as well. Thank you. It was a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Luis, and you had a wonderful compliment end of your session, and it read like this: great deliberations beyond expectations, sir. And what else actually we need, and this is what you can carry with you. You have done a very wonderful job, and it is really motivated, and the audience, they are pleased with your presentation. Very brilliant. Personally, I was very much impressed with your presentation, and thank you very much for traveling with us today, and we look forward to continue to listen to you, and we need more lectures and talks from you on our future endeavor. Thank you very much, and let's all give him virtual round of applause to Dr. Luis. And
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Bolivar, for moderating and handling the Q&A from Philippines. And thank you very much. You did it very well. And dear participants, I would like to welcome each of you for joining us from India, France, Uganda, Nigeria, South Africa, Bangladesh, Philippines, Kenya, Geneva, Tanzania, Ghana, and Myanmar. Thank you for the good response that you people are giving to our effort that is taken from India. Of course, we don't limit our work only in India, and it has gone beyond, and we are really happy and thrilled about your participation and your comments and the questions that you posed. It really encourages us to plan more so that we can learn and share what we know about the Knowledge Society. Thank you very much. I also take this opportunity to welcome Nadia Balgobin. She's our senior advisor attending from Geneva, and also Josephine Abigail. She's working on communication in the head office. Hearty welcome to both of you. And I would like to mention here that this is a joint effort of Globethics.net India, Christ University based in Delhi, and also Cebu Technological University. So here is a short video tour of Cebu Technological University based in Cebu Province, Cebu City, Philippines.
Every moment is a step to a brighter future. A good plan today is the key to a better tomorrow. The Cebu Technological University is a premier state university providing advanced professional and technical education to future industry leaders. With recognition for its quality education, CTU has conquered the future of the young generation. The university adapts to a multidisciplinary technological approach, integrating research, community engagement, and sustainable practices. In support to the Philippine government and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, CTU also focuses on the upholding of lawmaking, climate change initiatives, and more. With engineering as its flagship program, CTU seeks to produce scientifically and technologically oriented professionals, grounded on the values of effective management of resources and inclusive development. As a state university, the school believes in equal access to quality education for all.
You're on mute, Regula.
Thank you, Dr. Ruvan and Dr. Rodera. Dr. Ruvan is present here and Dr. Rodera is traveling. For your special interest to work with the globaltics.net, and thank you for partnering with us, and we wish you all the best. Thank you very much. And having said that, let me take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Christine Hausel. She is the lead for donor relation and strategic partnership, working in the head office that is located in Geneva, Switzerland. And Ms. Christine, kindly take over.
Hello, everybody. Can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, all right. Well, it's a pleasure to be with everybody. Somebody put in the chat, I love CTU, and after seeing this video, and I agree. It's so inspiring, and it actually doesn't it illustrate some of the very points that Luis Cardozo was talking about, integrating sustainability into the work. We're so proud to be working with, and we feel the same about Christ University, and we're so proud to be working with them as partners in this event. And to have all of you with us, all of these wonderful speakers and wonderful participants. You heard from my colleagues and I yesterday, and you've seen some of them introducing and playing different roles in the conference. We are representing globalethics.net partnership and promotion team. We told you a little bit about ourselves yesterday, and I would like to just take a moment in the context of the conference to highlight a few points briefly, just to give you a little flavor for some of what we are and what we do and what we might be able to do together in the network that we are. So in fact, it was so encouraging to listen to Dr. Cardozo because he he touched upon a lot of the very areas of work and the thinking behind globethics.net. So it's really very encouraging. We are a network. We are a network and a platform of teachers and higher education institutions focusing on ethics in higher education. Of course, we work with students and professionals as well. The strategic focus is with teachers and institutions. And so you might, if you were here yesterday, you heard our executive director talk about all of the concepts in our acronym, which is worth exploring more. I'm going to move on. In fact, over the years, we've been in existence almost 20 years, and in the network that we've created with the partners and the experts and the emerging scholars and the institutions, we've been trying to discern what's needed and what we can create and shape together. And we've actually made some good progress, and we have some resources that we therefore have to share. And we're then in the process of always continuing. And so I want to just expose you to what we have, and then also use it as a way of triggering our thoughts about, together in the network, what can we go on to co-create. So you see, we have an online library, a publications platform, an online academy with some in-person elements, and the network itself. And you've heard mention of this online open access library, and I believe my colleagues will put the link in the chat. It is just a resource that is there and available to everybody, and we invite you to help us make it known, and also to use it, to use it in your teaching, to use it in your research. And also, it is possible to help build this library by uploading your own documents that have open access rights, and by putting collections from institutions in there with us, which you can talk to us about. We have a publications house, and through it, all of the things that are published are then put into the library. So they become open access, they're downloadable, and we are working on making sure to have high quality publications. And so the lecture about publication, we have to pay attention to these things and constantly discern at what level we're at and where do we want to reach. But we strive for high quality publications. And we also strive to be accessible both to experts and to emerging researchers. So we publish our own things and have calls for contributions, and we also are available for you to reach out to us if you might like to publish with us. So you are welcome also to check out the publications we have. These are just some examples in the education series. So our library is curated. Our publications are organized into different series, and this is one. You can also order them through Amazon to get hard copies. It's just an example of a recent one, artificial intelligence, ethics, and higher education. It's been a theme we've worked on for a long time, and now we've done a new book specifically looking at AI in higher education. Because as Pavan Dugal said yesterday, we're all behind, in fact, things are happening, and we need to not only pay attention, but help drive the change, help lead the change, help make sure that ethics is a part of it. And this is the whole purpose of globethics.net, to bring out the ethical dimensions of the different areas of study and societal life that we have. We have a wonderful academy where you can join with others around the world, both professors and other students, to study some of the very things we're talking about. And they are 8 to 10 week courses. You have some online study, and you have the opportunity to gather together in a Zoom chat with the other students and professors. And both professors and students alike tell us that this is one of the real value propositions of these courses, because that interaction, like the interaction we're having here, is just, it's irreplaceable. You learn things, and you learn how people might need to apply things in their different contexts. And you might have debates that are different than the ones you would have in your own context only. So it's a real rich learning, and it also builds the network, because we have alumni of the Academy, both teachers and students. And as our courses grow, we're constantly looking for new teachers for our courses as well. And we're also continuing to build up our course curriculum. And again, this is something that is done in partnership with different experts, with different institutions. And my colleague Maria Eugenia Barroso just put a note in the chat during Professor Cardoso's talk, because this is a kind of practical example of what he was talking about. This is a short course, which is actually designed to help teachers to put the ethical components of their discipline into their syllabus. And it creates goals and targets and evaluation mechanisms. This is an example of working in partnership, because one of our partners in Latin America, in Colombia, Uni Andes, developed this course in their ethics center at their university. And then we made it known through our network. And then eventually we mutually decided that it would be mutually beneficial to put it on the Globe Ethics platform, so that it could be more widely engaged. And as Eugenia said, the booklet is free for download, so you can already take a look at it. The next step is getting it translated into English, so others can participate in this. But it's an example of how our network can work. We're also innovating some projects, and we just have time to name them right now. But all of our team is here to talk to you and explain it to you in more detail, to see if you might like to participate. So my colleague Susan mentioned this EMET yesterday. It's a ethics performance management system that is a self-assessment tool to benchmark, monitor, and evaluate the academic institution itself. And it's based on self-assessment. So a group of identified leaders in the community, teachers and management, come in to be trained as assessors, and then they go back to their institutions and implement the assessment. And it's an online tool that globeethics.net has created with our senior advisor, Nadia Balgaban, who's here with us today. And so we're actually in the pilot testing phase of this with Ghanaian institutions, Rwandan institutions, and Bulgarian higher education institutions. And we're looking toward a global rollout next year. So we can be in touch about this with you in the future. And a different but related tool we've launched. We've talked about how ranking can sometimes be inequitable, and somehow many of the rankings only value certain things, our research capabilities and so on, which then goes to money and so on. And yes, that's interesting, important category, but there are others. And so globeethics.net thought that we want to look at a ranking instrument that places values, ethics, and sustainability as central principles of higher education institutions worldwide, and gives a kind of ranking according to those. This has actually been developed. It's been piloted with several of our partner institutions. And now it's actually being implemented in the first instance. And so it is, if you would like to participate in the first run, of this ranking tool, it is available to you if you're an institution. We can tell you more. Well, through the network, we organize conferences, and we're in one right now. You see, we're in the second one of 3. It's a 3-conference series. led by different of our regions in partnership with higher education institutions, and also shaped as a kind of international effort of globethics.net. And so with this conference, we're exploring priority themes, and we're also exploring how can we make use of our network together. And in the feedback form that you'll receive at the end of this event, we want your genuine feedback about what you think of this event. And especially if you're attending more than one, are we successfully, communicating what we're trying to do, involving people, exploring the themes well, and making the linkages, regionally, internationally, between these different interwoven subjects. So we look forward to your feedback. We're glad you're here. And the next one is happening in July, and we'll mention it again at the end of the event, led by East Africa. So coming to the end, we're in the process of developing our strategic plan for the next 5 years, and we want our partners to contribute to the thinking. And so one of those ways to contribute is to actually fill in an online survey, which is relatively brief. And so anyone who would like to do that can just do it. So if somebody would put that in the chat, you're welcome to fill in the survey. It's a contribution to our own strategic thinking at globethics.net. And in addition, if you're a partner institution of ours and would like to do a more in-depth discussion and interview, you can talk to any one of the team. We're approaching people, and if you're interested, we would love to hear from you. Finally, again, we encourage you as individuals to, if you have not already, simply to register in our network. By doing so, you will get our newsletter. You'll be considered a participant in the globethics.net network. And you'll have full access to the library. There are just a couple of collections which are reserved only for registered participants. Now, this is how you can participate on an individual level. Individuals can also join our consortium as a member, and institutions then, we are looking to partner with higher education institutions in a formal way by bringing and inviting them into our consortium for ethics in higher education and signing cooperation agreements, which says we want to work together. We mutually embrace the mission and vision of each other. And we're going to take up, this challenge issued by Luis Cardoso to take network seriously and to see how we can bring knowledge and action together, which is the work of globethics.net, and it's the goal of this conference as well. So thank you so much for your participation, attention, and I hand back the floor.
Ali, paper presentation. Ali is there? Ali Taniyov?
While we're waiting, just another invitation. I and my colleagues are going to put our emails into the chat. So if anyone wants to reach any of us, if you reach one of us, you reach all of us, and so, please, but of course, you'll work closely with people in your region if you're so lucky to have a regional representative in your region. And we're looking to grow the number of regional representatives, but we work very closely together to build our partnerships. So we're all going to put our emails in the chat for you. All right.
Okay, dear audience, thank you for being with us. And I'm sure we have now loads to carry ahead. But let me remind you that the presentations of the research done across the globe, they are before us and we are going to listen to them. And we'll now move forward to listening to the presenters of the day. The accepted papers to be presented today are from different parts of the world. And they are from Philippines, Colombia, India, and also from Indonesia. I warmly welcome you to sit back, relax, and listen to the sincere observations and information which these papers have to offer for us. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Dennis P. Macken, who comes from the Philippines, for presenting his paper on the theme, Confronting Disinformation and Misinformation, the Role of Higher Education Institutions in Fostering a Knowledge Society. Dr. Dennis, the floor is yours.
Okay, do you have my PowerPoint, and are you
Yes,
going to
I will share. I will share it.
Okay. Well, while that's happening, let me just indicate one thing. I mean, we've had a very good discussion so far about social responsibility. And that's been a part of my life for, well, since 1981. I've been teaching business ethics and corporate social responsibility in various universities for 30 years in the United States and in the last 10 years in the Philippines. I don't see the PowerPoint yet, but here we go. Okay. Okay, next slide. In the first slide, the one thing I would indicate to you that you may want, you've got my email address. It will be there as well at the end. But here's the outline of what I want to talk to you about: the social responsibilities of universities briefly, then what is disinformation, how to check the spread of disinformation, and can universities make a difference? Next slide, please. The social responsibilities of universities, this is a relatively new topic, but the key point is that of universities, like other forms of corporate social responsibility, alas, tends to be seen as external, a form of outreach to other stakeholders, not well coordinated with internal functions, and increasingly fragmented in the three silos. These are things that we talked about yesterday to good effect, I think. But at any rate, the reason that we want to focus on disinformation is that, yes, it is flourishing in its social media beyond the university's control. It becomes a threat that requires a rethinking of the social responsibilities of universities, since it tends to subvert the university's mission in what people describe now as a post-truth cultural environment. In other words, if that's what we're dealing with, then how on earth we can approach disinformation? It is a social responsibility of universities to do it for a number of reasons, a key one being that this is something that we're supposed to know about, that our traditions of teaching, learning, and research, when done with integrity, may provide some answers on what to do about disinformation. Okay, the next one, please. Next slide. What is disinformation? Disinformation is distinguished from misinformation. Disinformation means the dissemination of deliberate falsehoods versus mistaken beliefs shared in good faith. Now, where I got started with this years ago was with Jürgen Habermas's theory of communicative interaction, where he talked about communicative competence and actually talked about the nature of truth and how it is arrived at, and also the practical challenge even then in the mid-1980s of systematically distorted communication, which was his way of dealing with the problem of ideology, which I believe Benoit and others had been talking about yesterday. Now we can see examples of disinformation. I'm not going to talk about India and India politics. That's up to the people of India to figure out. But I'm sure that disinformation is a factor there, as it has also been in my own country, in the United States, and in my adopted country of the Philippines. We can see it in the controversies over COVID-19, its origin and its remedies. Some of that has already been discussed. We can see it in politics. big discussion going on in the United States in congressional hearings has to do with Donald Trump's big lie. In other words, that the election was stolen from him, and those who perpetuate it. This again is a disinformation campaign. It is deliberate. And then we have the rehabilitation of the Marcos dictatorship in and for sustaining support for Bongbong Marcos, who was recently elected as president of the Philippines. This has been going on for at least 10 years. The organized attempt to create a different memory of Filipino history in order to facilitate the Marcos returns to power. Now, what motivates disinformation? Well, I think we had a talk earlier today, from a colleague that was excellent on the psychological challenges that create this as one problem, but many related to it. Actually, disinformation is, if you will, a nonviolent path toward domination of others. The perennial problems of deception versus coercion, we could talk about that in terms of the morality of that. We can see it in the corruption of the economy through fraud, and now its extension to politics and culture. That is the creation of a post-truth environment in which most people, including our students, no longer have the capacity for telling what is fake from what is real, given the social media environment in which they operate. Next slide, please. How to check this, how to check the spread of disinformation. Universities increasingly are alert to the challenges of operating in a post-truth environment. For example, here in the Philippines, over 1,700 scholars have signed a manifesto in defense of historical truth and academic freedom, pledging to defend the history of the Philippines against revisionist histories glorifying the Marcos dictatorship. Of those 1,700 I counted, there are 29 of them that are affiliated with our university, with Silliman University, we're very proud to say. And it does have the support from the top in the administration. Beyond the clear and present danger is the problem of institutionalizing resistance, the challenge of institutionalizing resistance to disinformation through new models of teaching and learning designed to empower students to function critically, especially in a world of social media. We've already seen some resources for that in the previous discussions. Here are two other examples that I've checked over and I think can be recommended. One would be the work of Stanford University's Cyber Policy Center, and there's its EDL, that empowers faculty and administrators for resistance to disinformation on a more practical level geared toward the needs of students and to empower them is Ohio University's a practical guide to misinformation and fact checking, which will provide some resources to getting started on how you can begin to sort out, what is fake from what is real. Next slide, please. Can universities make a difference? Well, not unless they really become transformed internally in the way some of our previous speakers have already indicated. We have to ask ourselves, what is the relationship of university education and democracy? Do universities have a stake in how political decisions are made and enforced? Is combating the emergence of a post-truth environment properly regarded as one of the social responsibilities of universities? In fact, I would say it is the responsibility. If we are not founded on truth and the pursuit of truth, then, I don't know what we're doing, how we can continue to claim fidelity to our mission. The immediate pedagogical challenge is how can universities address the needs of students who, because of their involvement with social media, seem, as I said, increasingly unable to tell the difference. The long-term structural challenge is how can universities reconstruct their mission in a globally digitalized learning environment that, for fun and profit as well as political domination, systematically exploits our addiction. And that we have to look at each one of us in our own practices, our addiction to social media. As yet, there are no clear indications of an effective response to these challenges, but the first step, perhaps the most important step, is to become aware of the problem. And last slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is an opportunity, I hope, for collaboration. I will continue to do research on the problem of disinformation and hope to work most closely with colleagues here, first at Silliman in the Philippines and then wherever else anyone would like to contribute. If you like a copy of the paper or the PowerPoint, etc., there are my email addresses and feel free to use them at any time. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis McCann, for bringing such a timely and important issue to the conference. And so you hear, it's a call for collaboration here. As we know, there's also going to be a publication following this event. So maybe that could be one location for collaboration as well. We thank you for presenting Stephen Rothland's paper as well. Everybody, a virtual round of applause for Dennis McCann. All right, I'd like to welcome my colleague Maria Eugenia Barroso to the floor to present the next paper giver.
Dear participants, I'm Maria Eugenia Barroso, Globetics Regional Officer for Latin America region. I'm based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your engagement and active participation during this today's conference. We are really enjoying the dialogue and the exchange with you through the chat.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have actually missed one paper. Sandra and Christine were supposed to.
Okay, well let's then go in order. Yeah, we'll come back to you, Eugenia. Apologies,
okay.
Everybody. I think we're going to. I will present the next paper, who's going to be given by Sandra Posada Bernal, and it represents a collaborative work by. With Natalie Vargas and Diana Mildred Avila Ruiz from Colombia. The theme is social networks in the information society. And so we see a kind of connection. So you're right, Regula, to make sure we do this one after the previous presentation because they connect thematically. Social networks in the information society, a strategy of knowledge consumption and production by young university students. Please, we welcome Sandra, and you have some team members here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Rajula, you have our presentation or
I can share.
Okay.
Who's going to present?
Both the three person, we are the presentation.
Okay. While she's getting that set up, we're so glad to have all three of you. I don't think we knew we were going to have all three of you, so it's wonderful. And this really shows us, this is a collaborative work, and we're happy to have all of your faces, all of your voices. Try to keep a little bit within time.
Okay. Good afternoon for everyone. It's a pleasure for us to be in this event. Obviously to represent the Universidad Santo Tomás of Bogotá, Colombia. The research that we are going to present called Social Networks in the Information Society and a Strategy of Knowledge Consumption and Production by Young University Students. It is the result of the students of the research group Mente en Red, of which I am the leader. My name is Sandra Posada, and I'm accompanied by two of my students, Natalie Vargas and Mildred Avila. Natalie?
Afternoon. Please, next slide. Well, the introduction is explained from 4 points. Firstly, social networks. These make knowledge available at the reach of a single click. Secondly, information society, because we are constantly exchanging information with different users that allowing personal communication with others. Thirdly, knowledge consumption and production. On the internet, you can find content ranging from healthy habits to publication that generates stress or insecurity. Considering that lifestyle is connected to the life cycle since each stage of human development presents behavioral modifications that are associated with psychological, cognitive, emotional, and social changes. Finally, young university students, young people, are in the formation of their identity and in the strengthening of relationships with others, where social networks play an important role. For this reason, the main objective is identify the type of content consumed and shared by young university students on social networks. Please, the next slide. The methodology section has considered the following points. This research was conducted from a cross-sectional descriptive quantitative study. In addition, information was obtained from 80 people through chain sampling, which identifies key participants that are being added to the sample. Finally, the sample had an average age of 21.5 with a standard deviation 3.5 years. 76.2% were women and 23.8% were men.
Can you continue the next slide, Rajula, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Diana. No te escuchamos.
We're not hearing anything. We see you're off mute, but we're not hearing anything.
No te vemos. I can hear you.
Sandra, can you continue?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Hi, finally.
Come on.
So here we found that the consumption of information in social networks focuses on the self-care and in the way young people run their bodies, mainly in 3 topics. First one is is related with recipes and food. 67% of the participant sample is here. 57% consume information, exercise, and physical activity, and 56% of the young participants follow accounts of sports clothing or footwear, as well as accessories of to complete their daily attire. Next, please. Also, we found that young people are more to share publications about their personal life, friends and personal activities, and about their family. So here we found 72% publish activity friends, 72% post selfies to let others know their moods, activity, plans to develop, for example, travels, etc. 56% publish memes, which are often related to funny situations. Here we took the memes as a sort of global personal communication, a way of humorous expression to understood by anyone, with the power of saying or showing something, but without the weight of the seriousness that usually takes in the daily life. And finally, we found 55% activities with family. So here we can notice that, for example, is more important to the individuality and the development of identity than the family group or the origin group. Next, please.
Rayula, please, can you change the slide? Thank you. Well, our conclusions of the research, it is important to mention that the consumption of information about recipes and food, as well as exercise, has a direct impact of the establishment of healthy habits, which can be dangerous if not done under supervision of the experts of nutrition or exercise prescription. Likewise, following clothing pages can favor elements of consumption or unrealized desires when trying to acquire products from brands and take advantage of these platforms to make their products known and market them. On the other hand, the information that young people share is part of the process of consolidation of their individual or group identity. So showing others what they do with friends and family represents a space of relationship with others. In this way, and based on our research, it's necessary to reflect one of the facts of the higher education institutions in charge of the education of young people who access it, should design meeting space to generate an ethical, critical, and reflective capacity when accesses of the information provided by the social networks, as well as to be able to express themselves as a part of the development as the adults of the future.
Okay, you can take down the PowerPoint. We would like to thank you for sharing the results of your findings. And we would like to again affirm that globeethics.net is committed to this intergenerational work and dialogue. And so we're so happy to see an intergenerational project and also presentation. And we look forward to continuing to work with you. And we note that you did the work of translating your findings into English for us and daring to come and speak and present in English. So it was very well received, very interesting. We appreciate it very much. Let's give everybody a big round.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Plus, it's very early and still they have joined.
Indeed.
From Colombia.
Indeed, including for the rehearsals as well, you know, so.
As early as 3:30 a.m. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for all of you.
See you again. And now we move back to Maria Eugenia Barroso.
Thank you, Christine. And dear participants, I will reintroduce myself. I am Maria Eugenia Barroso, Globetics Regional Officer from the Latin America region. I'm based actually on Buenos Aires, Argentina. I want to especially thank you for all your engagement and active participation during this 2 days conference. It has been a great time. We are really enjoying the dialogue and the exchange of experience and comment with you through the chat and the Q&A box. And let me now introduce the following paper presenter. Braden Roro Manda Adrian, member of OMNIA, Interfaith Peacemaker Team, is an institute for contextual leadership as an interfaith pacemaker team in Indonesia. She will present the topic, the theme of her paper is Knowledge Society in Religion. Ms. Mandadrian kindly takes over the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for Globe Ethic as well for having me here. So today I'm going to share my paper in the context of Indonesia. Hopefully it will be helpful. So would you mind to help me, Rajula? Next slide, please. So according to UNESCO, knowledge society are about capabilities to identify, produce, process, transform, disseminate, and use information to build and apply knowledge for human development. They require an empowering social vision that encompasses plurality, inclusion, solidarity, and participation. Next slide, please. Knowledge society and religious tolerance. In relation with religious tolerance, it is usually difficult to tolerate public forms of behavior that we do not share. A society therefore needs to learn how to be tolerant of different practices and different views of what it is to lead a human life. Next slide. The education system in Indonesia. Indonesian children are starting school earlier and staying in school longer than they ever have before. But the country has made relatively little progress in improving educational quality and learning outcomes. However, the country's problem with education quality and learning have also been at their root a matter of politics and power. Indonesia has not just lacked the financial, human resources, and administrative prerequisites for a high-quality education system, but crucially, the underlying politic prerequisites. Next slide, please. So the causes of education gaps in Indonesia happen because one of the poverty. Children from poor households will hesitate to postpone going to school. The second one is a gender equality. So for those people who come from a poor household, usually the family will prioritize the male or the boys to go to school because they thought that women should not have a higher education and they can stay at home helping for the household chores. And then the third one is the pandemic impact. The pandemic impact that happened in Indonesia and all over the world for these last 2 years has impacted so bad in so many things, including the education, because there are so many people and family who has a difficulty to access the Zoom meeting and how to run the school from home. And that's also happened in Indonesia. And then the fourth one is the social welfare. The impact of education gap in Indonesia then first is the characteristic of the family consisting of income, level of welfare, family size, level of educational parents. And then also the characteristic of children or student, consisting of level of student ability, health, nutrition, cognitive power, and gender. And the last one is also the quality of education, including teaching quality, student and teacher ratio, class size, teacher qualification, quality of classroom and learning equipment, curriculum, school infrastructure, and routine maintenance, also electricity supply, drinking water, and toilet facilities. Given that the role of knowledge show a positive influence of behavior relevant to Barnett's theory in Swan and Stepp, The theory suggests that the behavior of those surrounding an individual will influence their behavior based on knowledge, attitudes, and worth acceptance. Those behavior related to religious tolerance and respect to diversity always relies on knowledge of other religion as well. The influence of knowledge society. Education contribution is especially vital in regions and countries where lack of tolerance is associated with violence and conflict. And the more equal education, the greater its power to increase tolerance. So the ways to promote religious tolerance, one is dialogue. The second one is build networking. The third one, make a friend with everyone, because dialogue can be start from friendship and the simple things. Fourth, visit each other during the religious celebrations and also the ceremonies. And the fifth one is being open-minded and humble. Some recommendations that I thought it will be useful are one from the government. The government should prioritize the concern in education and allocate the national budget for it. The education should be equal for all the people and can be accessed by all people. The curriculum education should be also included tolerance education, which has an put in our curriculum, in our national curriculum. And then promote interreligious and intercultural dialogue to build understanding, avoid the prejudice, and bridging the diversity. For NGOs, NGOs can help and partnership with the educational institution to give some trainings, workshops, seminars to educate people with all variant knowledge and topics. And then from educational institution has an important role to give the right education to all the people. Besides of that, educational institution can also collaborate the people with the proper knowledge. So through the cooperation from the government, NGOs, and educational institution and stakeholders, we can maximize the potential of knowledge society to make available knowledge that bring justice, solidarity, democracy, peace, and well-being to all members of society. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adrian, for your wonderful presentation. Over to you, Mrs. Sohini.
Thank you, Maria. It's an honor now, respected participants, to have the opportunity to welcome Dr. Shnauli Chakraborty Acharya from West Bengal, India, for presenting her paper on probity in publication ethics, Indian perspectives with reference to UGC careless journals. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you. A warm good afternoon to everyone. And my special thanks to Globethics for having me here and giving me the excellent opportunity to meet the global friends, global colleagues all around. Before starting my presentation, I wish to share my screen. Is my screen visible? Will you please confirm?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Will I continue with this? It's not coming in the full screen mode.
It's blank still. It's looking black. We can see your screen, but it is dark.
Yeah. Now it's coming, probably.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm honored to be here in this wonderful conference on shaping knowledge societies through higher education, organized by Globethics. And today my presentation is on the topic probity in publication ethics, Indian Perspectives with reference to UGC careless journals, and myself, Shnauli Chakraborty Acharya, teaching in Education Department, West Bengal State University, Kolkata, India. So I have framed my presentation as well as my article with the following points. First is the need for publication. Second is what is publication ethics. And third is UGC careless journals and all the whereabouts and the guidelines regarding UGC careless journal. Coming to my first point, need for publication. Here we are having a little glance on the different needs, why we need to publish in the higher education. As well as the students who are coming forward with their researches, PhDs, they need to publish for the sake of documentation. Roots of scholarly scientific publishing can be traced to 1665, when Henry Oldenburg of the British Royal Society established the journal Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. This is the historical point we are focusing on. The purpose of the journal was to document the original thoughts and record it in written form as public document, as well as motivate others to speak their own voices. Nextly, budding researchers, they consolidate their researches through their publications. Peer-reviewed journals, which is one sector of journals. There are different sectors or different ways the journals are formed, different ways to validate the writings of the researchers. Peer-reviewed journal is one of them. These journals are there, or they have been established researchers, and authors are recognized through their writings in their concerned departments, where they are working in their perspective for professional places, in their departments, universities, institutional, as well as national and international levels. So now coming to what is publication ethics. Academic integrity or honesty in our writings, in the academic, in our perspective of academic writing, that could be defined, that has been defined by UGC in 2021. As I'm presenting to the global participants, I need to explain what does UGC. UGC stands for University Grants Commission 2021. UGC Grants Commission, they have said in 2021 that the intellectual honesty in performing, reporting any activity which leads to the creation of new knowledge and intellectual property. So the academic integrity comes under the intellectual property rights. Any attempt of compromised academic integrity should be challenged, questioned, and de-recognized at all levels, including the college, universities, as well as different national level institutes for of national importance. Publication ethics are certain rules of conduct while publishing results of scientific research or any other scholarly work. So that's a kind of conduct, that's a set of rule of conduct that we need to follow, who are the budding researchers as well as who are working in the higher education, to publish their original scholarly work. It is a standard that protects intellectual property and forbids or refuses the republication of another researcher's work without proper credit, as well as forbids the use of plagiarism of others' efforts. So this, if we are to maintain or follow the code of conduct or the publication ethics, plagiarism is strictly prohibited. Now, as my paper is focused on the UGC careless journals, here is a screenshot taken from the notification that has been produced by UGC in 16 September 2019. In a public notification, the UGC is announcing that the old, I'm here in point number 1, the old UGC approved list of journal has been replaced with a new UGC reference list of quality journals, called the UGC Care List, and with effect from 2019, 14 June. Research publications only from the journals indexed in these lists be considered for any academic purpose. For the PhD if the budding researchers who are pursuing PhD, they wish to publish anything, or the working faculties in the higher education sector, if they could publish their scholarly works only in the UGC careless journals, that will be taken into account for the academic purpose. And the selection committee constituted of the vice chancellor selection, different committee members were there, different committees were constituted as well, selection committees, training committees, research supervisors from all sectors were there, who constituted the committee for proposing this UGC careless journals. Now, coming to what does this careless journal mean? CARE is the abbreviated form. It stands for Consortium for Academic Research and Ethics. And the UGC has set up CARE to identify, monitor, and maintain reference of quality journals across the disciplines. This is basically formed to maintain the quality of the research publications and to stop the plagiarism. Research articles published only in CARE reference list of quality journals, it is in a short form called the CARE list, should be considered for all academic purposes and developed to promote academic and research integrity as well as the publication ethics. So as I have discussed the different publication ethics or the role of conduct that a researcher or an author of the author in the higher education field need to follow. They are instructed rather by the UGC to publish their publications, their writings, their chapters, anything. In this, especially these are the journals list, and they will be looking into or taking care of the research integrity, and they will be promoting higher quality of academic research work. And they will constitute the publication for all the academic fields, not only for the general side, for the science, for the medical, for the engineering, every sector. And UGC careless journals are the research journals from all disciplines indexed in Scopus also. Not all the journals that are listed in the CARE list having indexed in the Scopus, but most of them are Scopus index journals, and they have very significant positions in the Web of Science as well. And it's given in brackets like Arts and Humanities Citation Indexed Source Publication, Science Citation Index Expanded Source Publication, Social Science Citation Index Source Publication. All these are included in the UGC careless journals. And here is also a link provided from where we could get all the informations about the UGC careless journals. And now coming to the authorities of UGC careless journals, or how would we confirm that these are the best academic journals, or these would confirm no plagiarism as well as high quality. So the UGC has, they have allotted this duty to 4 universities in different regions of India, one in the northern region, one in the western region, another is the southern region, and finally in the eastern region. So the whole India academically has been divided into 4 regions, and 4 universities has been allotted with the duties to take care of the UGC careless journals. In the northern region, the Jawaharlal Nehru University, or JNU in short form we call it, based on New Delhi, they take care of the northern region care listed journals, or rather the publications of the northern regions. The MS University of Baroda, Vadodara, Gujarat, in the western region, this university has been assigned to take care of the western region, all the publications in the UGC careless journals of the western region. The University of Hyderabad in Hyderabad, it takes cares all the publications of the belonging to the southern region of India. And in the eastern region, Tejpur University in Assam, a state in the eastern India, northeast India, it takes care of all the publications in the UGC careless journals from the eastern side of India. And UGC has established a cell for journal analysis as well. It has established a cell at SPPU Pune, that is called the Savitribai Phule Pune University, and the UGC cell has been established there under the Center for Publication Ethics to create and maintain the UGC care list under the supervision of UGC Care Impart Committee. So the main quality control has been under the hands of Savitribai Phule Pune University, and one Impart committee has also been formed by UGC to to maintain the quality or the standards of these journals. And finally, in this presentation, due to the dearth of time, coming to the ethical responsibility, a little focus on the ethical responsibilities of the authors. There are certain guidelines mentioned by UGC as well, but this is not the exact guidelines been mentioned in this slide. Rather, it is a mingled form of the UGC guidelines set for the authors, as well as the ethical responsibilities of the authors in general, that the authors should take care while publishing, or rather while submitting any research paper to any UGC careless journals. They should not fabricate or manipulate the data that they are presenting in their journals or in their research papers. They should avoid plagiarism and give proper acknowledgement to others' works. If they're taking any help or any citation from different works, there should be proper acknowledgement for that. Decide the order of authorship prior to writing the paper to avoid future conflicts. So if a paper is containing authorship of more than one author, that should be cited properly, or they should be acknowledged properly what kind of work they are doing for that particular paper. That should be acknowledged in a proper way. Declare whether research work has been published or presented before. So as we all know that in any quality journals, not only the UGC careless journals, but there are many other quality journals as well, where we need to provide certain a disclaimer is there, or rather we need to put some acknowledgements that we have not yet sent this paper or submitted this paper to elsewhere. So this kind of declarations should be made by the author. Avoiding ghost, gift, or guest authorship. These are the different kinds of fake authorships. Ghost authorship is the kind of thing that actually it is the literal meaning of the ghost, as I could say, that there is no existence of a ghost and of an author, and still we are presenting the name of that author. That is the ghost authorship. Gifted authorship is somebody is the name of some authors is being included as a gift or a kind of bonus for them, rather that author is not, he or she has not done anything or contributed anything to that paper at all, but still his or her name has been included. That's called the gift authorship or guest authorship. This kind of things should be awarded in the paper. Do not submit the manuscript to more than one journal for simultaneous consideration. So that should be declaration made by the author as well. Take approval from the institutional ethics committee before conducting the research, if there is any. There are different institutional ethics committees or the journal authority. They also have their own list of ethics that the author need to follow for submitting the papers, and the authors should follow them. And finally, take direct responsibility for appropriate portions of the content. So the authors are always responsible for furnishing any raw data, any raw calculations, any statistical analysis based on primary data. They need to take the responsibility of those portions in their concerned research works. So these are in brief the ethical responsibilities of the author. And with this, I would like to stop my brief discussion, and I would be happy to reply to any of the questions on my discussed topic. Thank you so much once again, Globethics, for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shnali Chakraborty, for your insightful and informative presentation on ethical publication ethics. You have taken UGC as the context, and you have beautifully presented your analysis related to ethical guidelines. So thank you for that wonderful presentation, and I request a virtual applause from the audience for the presenter. And I would also like to take the opportunity to ask the audience if you have any questions for any of the presenters. If so, this is the time for you to post your questions on the chat. While I wait for that, meanwhile, let me thank all the presenters for their contribution
of their knowledge as well, their research and conceptual understanding in the form of their presentations in this conference. We are very grateful that you have chosen Globethics conference along with the partnering universities to present your work on. Since I do not see any questions in the chat, so we will move forward. Thank you to all the presenters for the wonderful presentations. Over to you, Ali.
Okay. A faculty member from the College of Management and Entrepreneurship and one of the Internationalization and ASEAN Integration Chairs of Cebu Technological University, Professor Mirio Gilbert de la Cruz, is here for the reactor's remarks. Professor de la Cruz, the floor is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
For a while. To the dynamic leadership and team of GlobeEthics.net, to my professional colleagues in the different parts of the globe, and to the listeners worldwide. Peace be upon us. Allow me to share the story by Tony Castle as collated by Reverend Father Frank Mihalik in his book, The Next 500 Stories. A prisoner was confined to solitary confinement and was given a Bible as his only companion. So I studied it very carefully for several years, long before the days of computers. He discovered the following facts about the Bible. It contains 3,586,489 letters. It has 773,692 words. It has 31,173 verses. It has 1,189 chapters. The word "and" occurs 46,277 times. The middle verse in the entire Bible is verse 8 of Psalm 118. All the letters of the alphabet are found in Esdra, chapter 8, verse 21. The longest verse is Esther, chapter 8, verse 9. The shortest verse is John, chapter 11, 35. Those were some of the amazing facts which the prisoner researched out of the Bible. But we were nowhere told that the message of the Bible touched the prisoner's heart. I would like to anchor that story to higher education institutions. Ideally, higher education institutions are sacred places of teaching and learning, places for the pursuit of knowledge, but above all, as temples of integrity and goodness. In my own literal interpretation, a criminal who will enter and be processed by a higher education institution will exit as a better citizen, better and contributing citizen. Based on the Philippine context, using my own lens or perspective, sad to say, the opposite happened. Many good persons who entered the higher education institutions exited as powerful and competent individuals, but became indifferent public servants and oppressive entrepreneurs. As a citizen of the Republic of the Philippines, I was shattered, but I am not devoid of hope. I strongly believe that higher education institutions will continue its quest to uproot the weeds of violence, to uproot the weeds of hatred, to uproot the weeds of indifference, and plant the seeds of knowledge, plant the seeds of competence, and plant the seeds of compassion. Thank you very much, Dr. McCann, Miss Posada, Miss Natalie, and Miss Avila, Miss Adrian, and Dr. Acharya for presenting your papers. And thank you very much to our beloved Dr. Karanam, Dr. George, Dr. Cardoso, for sharing your insights and linking us to be concerned with the noble intentions of higher education institutions. And massive thanks to globeethics.net for creating a platform where goodness in human nature are explored and collaborated. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. That was just beautiful, and we are lucky to have a couple of people whose job, whose goal has been to listen carefully, process what we've been hearing, and give a reaction, to give a response, give some kind of closing ideas. So thank you to Professor Nero Gilbert de la Cruz. And
you are very much welcome.
We're
Ms.
very
Hausel.
happy to have you. And we're running just a little behind our scheduled time, but I encourage everyone to just stay on for just 10-15 more minutes to hear our closing remarks, which are really such an interesting kind of gathering of everything we've been listening to over the last couple of days. So we have another reactor, Dr. Ridhima Shukla, who is from our partner organization, Christ Deemed to be University in Delhi, and she is assistant professor and academic coordinator in the Department of Psychology. We've seen her before, and we welcome you back as a reactor to this wonderful conference.
Thank you, Christine, and yeah, I hope I am audible.
Dr. Surekha, you can say a few words about Dr. Ridhima.
Okay, fine, thank you. Yeah, so let me quickly introduce. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Ridhima Shukla. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology, Christ Deemed to be University, Delhi NCR campus. And she is here to share her observations and remarks for the day. And she's been an active researcher and a person who practices and actively working in consultancy projects in the community in the field of psychology. So over to you, Dr. Ridhima. We are waiting to hear your comments.
Thank you, Dr. Surekha, for providing me this opportunity, and thank you, Christine and Globe Ethics as well, for giving me this opportunity to bring my thoughts here. This entire session that I have attended today has put me into a place where, as a researcher, I would think more about the ethical concerns that I have to keep in mind while conducting my researches. Not only that, this entire thing has led me to a place. As an educator also, I'll practice ethics, and I'll ensure that the entire ethics are in place while we are shaping the society. So the deliberations that were done by the various presenters, they have put forth a lot of information in terms of how knowledge is shaping the society, and society in itself is shaped by knowledge itself. How youngsters are putting in a lot of efforts in, shaping their identity and providing them opportunities as well to develop their identities in such a way that is not only developing just societies, but developing good and ethical societies as well. Based on what Dr. Shanuli has presented, she has presented the entire relevance of why UGC Care journals are there, what is the relevance of putting all these things together, and why to be a practical, ethical practitioner, ethical educationist, and an ethical teacher as well. So all from my side for today. Thank you very much all.
Thank you very much for your comments. And we now have the honor and the pleasure of going back to the beginning. We heard from Father Jose Nandikara at the very beginning of the event. And we learned at that moment that this conference series, not only this India-led conference, but the conference series it came from him. It was a proposal that he made as National Director of India for Globe Ethics to the global team of Globe Ethics. And he proposed the theme, and he proposed that we bring together these three interweaving topics into a conference series: towards sustainable knowledge and ethical societies. And in the conference series, we're focusing on higher education, the contribution of higher education institutions as a network of higher education people and institutions. And he also thought that it could be interesting to use this series to bring light to the topics, the people, the partners from the different regions, and at the same time work together as a global team and bring an international scope to each conference. And so he's here just to share a few thoughts to wrap up the conference number 2 in the conference series, share a few thoughts, and we are going to give the feedback link. We're going to give a few details about the next conference following him, and then we'll close the conference. So let's listen to Father Jose Nandikara and give him our applause as he comes in. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, namaste. I'm very happy that people are staying back, 114. Now I could see. These 2 days of conferences, and also the other 2 conferences, one that was there in Argentina based on sustainable societies, and one yet to come, ethical societies in July. I must start with thanking all of you, dear participants, dear presenters, and the organizers. Especially I thank Rajula and the Indian team, and Christine and the Geneva team, and collaborating with Cebu Technological Universities and the Christ University Delhi campus. All of you worked together. We had a wonderful time. I wish we had more time, especially for the presenters. They got only 8 minutes. We had very senior members giving wonderful shared thoughts, and also the young members. I was eagerly listening to the young people, because that was a key element in our sustainable societies, knowledge societies, and ethical societies. The premise, the basic principle is very simple. Only ethically aligned and guided knowledge societies would produce sustainable societies. Ethics should take the leadership. Ethics should reign. Ethics should guide our knowledge societies. And that knowledge societies, ethically aligned knowledge society, should guide the constructing and promoting of sustainable societies. Today and yesterday, when we were focusing the knowledge societies, there was sometimes a kind of confusion or used synonymously, information societies and knowledge societies. And sometimes it also came network societies. So this knowledge societies in the public forum came through. Prior to that was information society. Information is power. It is raw data stored in our computers, including the cloud computing, and in our libraries, and also in our memories. Whereas knowledge is asking the question to that information, so what? Only with the human subjects, information become knowledge, and that must be translated into action. It is there we want to Globe Ethics come in and say that transformation should be done ethically. It should be guided. It is more than a duty, that's the privilege and the nature of human beings. We are Homo sapiens. We can distinguish between appearance and reality. And we are ethical beings. We can distinguish between the lesser good and greater good. And all of us become, in that process of becoming a greater, choosing the greater good, we become ethical and we create ethical societies. This is that information and knowledge, not for private good. That's the focus today, because knowledge, I would say information, or I would say education, is commodified, massified. So we are going there for a certificate so that we will get a job, so that we will have money, so that we would consider our life is happy. But that's not a fact. All of us know, though money is necessary, money will not be sufficient. That leads us only to a market society where everything has a price tag, but we do not have that value. Remember what the founding director of Globe Ethics said about the knowledge and the wisdom and the values, and that to bring into action so that we ask what and so what. Together with these three societies, we also take into account the political societies. We need that political power. We could also continue with the religious societies, the cultural societies. All of them come together with the common goal of sustainable societies. What are sustainable societies? That would practice intergenerational and intragenerational justice. So the basic needs, the 17 sustainable goals for all human beings. And now that we are extending that from human beings to planet, everyone has rights and privileges. We are all living in a common home and sisters and brothers. This GDP and the craze for more arms. And today, now because of the war, Ukraine and Russia, all the nations are increasing their military power. I wish we increase our knowledge power and the moral power. So together with these distinctions between information society, knowledge society, and sustainable societies and ethical societies, I would like to bring your attention what I mentioned yesterday, the 4 pillars of learning. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, learning to be. Today we speak about outcome-based education. From the learning, we should have a certain confidence. From learning to do with our skills, we should have a certain competence. And that competence should create a certain confidence, self-confidence. And in the society has a confidence in me, and I have a confidence in the society. That's where today more than any other time, we need to have learned to live together. We need to have that ideal of the family, ideal of the common home. Indian tradition, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The earth alone, earth is our common home. That part is now challenged. And this ethics, this coming together, I'm very pleased. That's the reason also, my humble suggestion of this Indian. This was earlier, we were planning to have these 3 conferences in India, shared with Christine and the Globethics Net Geneva, and they took a challenge, and we have now 3 regions coming together. I'm very pleased. And within that region today, now 7 or 8 nationalities are coming together. We are all benefiting. Our knowledge is for common good. All our efforts must be to common good. For that, again, we emphasize the character. There must be a character-based education. The outcome of education must be character. Here I want to emphasize on the implicit and explicit ethics, which we would develop much more in the next conference in July towards the shaping and ethical societies. As a result of this outcome, we have a project for 3 books: towards sustainable societies, towards knowledge societies, towards ethical societies. Contributions from these 3 conferences and also from other scholars and researchers, we would combine. It would be peer reviewed and published, openly available at the Globethics. Christine earlier mentioned the facilities available at the Globethics Net publication, and also hard books available. We will share with you the call for papers. We would request those who presented the papers to give us a complete paper with certain author guidelines, and that would be sent for peer review. And we hope to have 3 volumes with the noble goal of constructing sustainable society by way of constructing knowledge societies with aligned with ethics and values. Once again, thank you very much to all of you, dear participants, presenters, and your presence were great, and we are grateful. I'm also in a very special way grateful to the Geneva team, the Indian team, Cebu University, Christ University, and also the presence of the South American and the East African region officers' presence and their contribution. Let us work together to have sustainable societies wherever we are. We are working for common good with a determination, trusting in the mercy of God, and also trusting in our cooperative power. We can make life better for us and for all human beings and for all living beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And let's just take a moment to appreciate Father Joe's. Everybody, we've been seeing the response that people have been giving to your inspirational concluding.
From behind, I would like to just mention here that I have read in Father Joe's biodata that he is guided by the Vedic vision, let noble thought come from all sides. So he has taken this wise initiative for all the noble thought to, to come out. And this particular platform is created for all the noble thought from across the globe to come out so that it can be preserved in the form of the book. And I'm really glad to work under his leadership. And I'm very happy and I'm very grateful that he has made the entire world come and be part of this online platform and make effective contribution. So on behalf of the Geneva team and all the Globethics Net regional team, Cebu University and Christ University, and thank you very much, Chacha.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before Rajula comes back to wrap it up, we have Dr. Sarika Chukali, who's the head of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Christ University in Delhi. And they've been a partner in this event, and she's going to deliver a note of thanks and a few concluding remarks and observations herself.
Thank you so much, Christine. So hello, everyone, once again. Christ, deemed to be University, Delhi NCR, is very happy to collaborate with globethics.net and Cebu Technological University, Philippines, in organizing the second conference as part of the series of conferences. And we are presently working on shaping knowledge societies through higher education. It's my honor and proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks and also share my experience as a partnering organization for this immensely successful conference. Christ University team is extremely glad that we were able to, partner on this conference, and we, I think, together have been successful in creating a platform of knowledge. And we were all working towards this goal of creating knowledgeable societies. So I believe that this conference has truly been interdisciplinary in nature as well. And each speaker was definitely able to bring diverse viewpoints and important contributions and added towards the overall knowledge. So we had speakers and participants attending the seminar conference from across the globe and at different time zones as well. So it's been a humbling experience to see this, to see everyone's enthusiasm and their interest in making this a successful event. We have had participation which is not sporadic but continuous through the entire conference. So at the outset, let's acknowledge the divine blessings and grace bestowed upon all of us. And I would like to express my all our sincere gratitude to Father Jose Nandikara, National Director, globethics.net, who has been the backbone of this second conference and the overall conceptualization as well. His vision and inputs have led to the successful execution of this program. Thank you for being the guiding wisdom and pillar of the strength for this entire event, Father. I also profusely thank our Director and Dean, Dr. Father Viju P. Devasi, for his commitment to this collaboration. And he is someone who's always looking forward to opportunities to create knowledge and to contribute effectively back to the society as a higher education institution. So our heartfelt thanks to the Director as well. We are extremely grateful and a gratitude to Reverend Dr. Obiara E.K., Executive Director, globethics.net, for presenting the thematic talk, and Dr. Christoph Stickelberger, founder and president of Globe Ethics, for their his interesting keynote address. So these presentations have set the tone for deliberations and exchange of ideas, which we have been seeing happening since the past 2 days. We are thankful to Dr. Julio Duran, Academic Secretary, Universidad Argentina, for giving the highlights of the first conference and making the connect between the first conference and the second conference. We have seen him talking about it yesterday. A big thank you to Dr. Rudra and the team from Cebu Technological University for partnering with us, along with I think Ms. Rajula. She deserves a huge round of applause. She's the National Officer, globethics.net India, and her entire team for their immense hard work in putting this entire conference together. I acknowledge the efforts put in also from my Christ University Delhi NCR team, the other team members, especially Dr. Nitika Sharma, for her immense contribution to the seminar conference. A big thank you to Christine Hausel. So she is the lead donor relations and strategic partnerships. I think she's been one of the strengths of this organizing committee. She was coordinating and contributing effectively at the back end as well and throughout the entire event. Thank you, Christine, for that. And a big round of applause for you as well. And we acknowledge the effort of globethics.net staff from across different countries for their contributions in making this conference a huge success. To name few, Susan, Regional Officer for Ghana, Herbert Makinda, Regional Officer, East Africa, Maria Eugenia, Regional Officer, South America. A big thank you to all of you and a virtual applause for all of you as well. We extend also a gratitude to all the eminent speakers of the event, Dr. Meera Baindur, Dr. Amelie Ekiu, Dr. K. Pushmaladam, Dr. Tony Sam George, and Dr. Louis Miguel. They have definitely added value to our conference by contributing immensely through their wisdom and their ideas. So thank you to all the speakers, and a big congratulations to all the presenters who have put in their hard work and effort and presented their both conceptual and research work in the form of papers in this conference. So our heartfelt thanks for the value addition you have brought about to this contribution. And I would also like to, on behalf of the team, acknowledge the effort put in by the reactors yesterday and today in listening to all the presentations and giving their summary viewpoints of the entire day, both on day one as well as day two. So we are also grateful to all the support team at the back end and helping us in small little things like designing the brochures, designing the content, IT team for all the technological support which they have given. We are having it on YouTube as live, and then we are also, it is being done online on an online platform. Gokul for supporting from Christ University. All of you, a big thank you for making this a very smooth program without any glitters as well. So, and finally, a big thank you to all the audience and participants who have been extremely patient, energetic, enthusiastic, and eager for knowledge. I think the thirst for knowledge was very clearly visible in all of their participation through the comments, feedback, and questions in the chat section. So thank you. Good day to all of you, and goodbye. Over to you, Rajula.
Thank you, Dr. Sureka, for working with us, and you have an excellent team, Dr. Nitika and you, Father Viju. Wonderful working with you, and a lot of learning from you too. And university work is university, and among your busy schedule, you have helped with us. And thank you very much. I would like to bring in Christine and Father Jose just for their final words. 1 minute for each of them. Thank you, Dr. Sureka and team. Also, I'm bringing Herbert for the invitation for the upcoming conference that is led by East Africa region. Yes, Christine.
Thank you, Rajula. Rajula is surprising me by bringing me in at this point. And well, I think one thing I'd like to say is that from your Indian context, one thing that I really admire and appreciate is your practice of addressing one another with respect and all of us, and appreciating, acknowledging, the people that are behind things, and all of the efforts that have gone into this. And so I would like to just continue in that vein and reflect a little on that point, because working in this kind of partnership, our work is partnership. This is our work and our joy. And I try to pause and reflect on partnership from time to time. And in fact, it would have been easier for Father Jose to organize these conferences, in India. He proposed this idea a long time ago, and it was taken up. He could have done it more efficiently, if he had gone ahead. But he had a vision. Sometimes that's what you do, you write your own paper, you do your own conference, but then there are really times to bring people in, to connect with others. And I think that time in our world is here, as many of our presenters have been saying. And so we're finding, and this is what's behind globethics.net. It takes effort and energy and time and patience and tolerance, sometimes to bring all these players into a project and try to get people on board, and then let it develop and let it evolve and let it change, and sort of keep the right amount of boundaries and give the right amount of freedom. All of this is a real work. And I guess what I'd like to conclude by saying is, again, Father Jose, thank you for your vision, for both the theme, which is so relevant and current and needed today, and it's also at the heart of globethics.net. But at the same time, for your vision of partnership and a sense of, what could happen if we caught this vision with you. And I would like to also thank the team, the partnership and promotion team, for catching the vision as well, and also thank the whole GlobeEthics team for getting behind it. And you saw that we had a lot of participation from the whole team, behind the scenes and in front, as speakers and as organizers and many, many different things. And then to all the partners. and then it's just multiplied. And I think we're all seeing and feeling the fruits. So I conclude with a note of thanks and give the floor back to you, Father Jose.
Herbert, is he speaking? Herbert McKinder?
Yeah.
After you, Acha. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Somehow I was thrown out of the network briefly. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and everyone, in a special way, Father Jos and Rajula, for wonderfully organizing this with the other partners, Christ University and Cebu University, for the wonderful work that all of you have done, and all the participants and the presenters from yesterday to this time. I want to take this opportunity now just to invite you to take part in the final conference in the series. And this conference is on promoting ethical societies through higher education. That is the theme. And it will be taking place on the 7th and the 8th of July. So 3 weeks from now, we will be again back on air to, listen to more presentations and more engagement and more participation. The time will be 2 p.m. Kenya time, that is East Africa time. And just take note of that. East Africa time is GMT +3. So if you are in India, you will be joining the meeting at 4:30, 16:30. That will be 2 p.m. in East Africa. So welcome and see you then. Thank you very much.
Father Jose.
Thank you very much once again to all of you. And we are together. Someone just now wrote, though we are distant by physical presence, we are together in the vision. We are also together in the mission to create sustainable societies, to create knowledge societies, to create ethical societies. Together we can do. We are never going to be 100%. There is grades of perfection, and we are all positive. We work together, we build together, and we are happy about it. I'm very happy to meet all of you, and the sharing and 2 days program was amazingly good. Hearty congratulations to Rajula, Christine, and all of you who collaborated, and the professors and others who participated and shared. The participants, dear participants, we are grateful to you. You will get your certificate. And these conferences are much more than the certificates. Certificates are necessary but not sufficient. Let's learn, let's work together, join in this vision and mission. We are here to work together, to live together in harmony. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, each and every one of you. Thank you, Sheila Lane, for putting that particular noble thought from Philippines. And she is going to present a paper in the Africa-led program after 2 weeks. And my special thanks to all the speakers. I'm very happy to see Dr. Meera and Dr. Luis. And in fact, there is Dr. Robin from Philippines. And then she was the one who was in touch with me initially regarding partnership program with the Globethics.net India. And I would like to also mention here that this particular conference, it is a part of a major a conferencing and book project program that was planned long ago, and it is getting executed on the main theme towards sustainable knowledge and ethical society, the contribution of higher education institution. And this is the second conference, and one more is going to be there. And my request to each and every one of you to make a book chapter contribution for any of the book. It can be for knowledge society, ethical society, or sustainable society. And we will stay in touch with you, and you will receive all the details when, how, and where you can actually submit your book chapter. We will stay in touch with you, and thank you for attending this event. Thank you, speaker. Thank you, partner. Thank you, organizers. Thank you, each and every one of you. And I'm sure this is not the end, and we will meet again with another conference invitation. And thank you from my heart to each and every one of you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm closing.
Thank you.
Bye.